Welcome. This is ISD 709, Duluth Public Schools. It is our monthly Committee of the Whole meeting. We like to call this the informational, everything that's happening in our district's meeting. This is presentations. This is no voting, but many times what we talk about and find information about here and ask questions about might become voting issues in our regularly scheduled monthly meeting. But again, this is Tuesday. It is May 7th, and it is 5 o'clock, and we are the Duluth Public Schools. This is the Committee of the Whole meeting. I'll turn it over to Clerk Zadowski, and she will take roll.
Member Eder.
Present.
Member Loeffler-Kemp.
I am here.
Member Lofald.
Here.
Member Mikesell.
Present.
I am here. And Member Williams.
Here.
Superintendent Magus.
Present.
Assistant Superintendent Bonds.
Present.
Deputy Clerk Zunich.
Present.
Director of HR and Operations Severance.
Present.
Board Secretary Paquette. And that'll round out the attendance.
Thank you. And again, this is a reminder too that we do live stream for our community to watch. And then we also upload it onto our district's YouTube site. So you can watch your presentation after you've shared it with us, or if you are in our community and not able to come, that you have an opportunity to keep informed about all the important things going on in the district. Our Committee of the Whole has an agenda, and that has been shared with us. And today we're going to have presentations, no votes, but certainly presentations on a number of initiatives and projects. So we have the Achievement and Integration presentation. We have the Middle School, High School Update presentation. We have a Teachers on Call presentation. We have the year 25 proposed budget. We have the early childhood ECFE presentations. We also have Check and Connect, and we also have the Duluth Adult Basic Ed. So we have a full night of presentations. I'll turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Bonds.
Thank you, Chair Lofo, and good evening, Board and everyone else. Thank you for having us. And as you stated, we have a robust agenda. So we're going to kick it off right away with our coordinator for the Office of Educational Equity, Mr. Smith. He's going to provide an update related to the Achievement and Integration Plan. Mr. Smith.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to share about the Achievement and Integration Plan. It's one of the big focuses of the Office of Education Equity. We support the implementation of the plan, the development of the plan, and the like. And I'll share what the plan is, how we get the funding for the plan, why we're supposed to spend, where we're supposed to spend funding within the plan, and what we're doing within the plan currently. It's going to be a pretty fast rundown. I appreciate any questions throughout the presentation, and of course any questions and reflections when I'm done here. But the Achievement and Integration Program was established within Minnesota to three main goals: increase racial and economic integration, reduce achievement disparities, and increase access to effective and diverse teachers. The plan is linked within here, so if you all are interested, feel free to go and check that out. Next slide. So districts get identified and receive revenue. There are four different ways. Whether a district is racially isolated, that means that the enrollment of protected class students district-wide is more than 20% compared to the number of protected class students in one of the adjoining districts. So for example, Cloquet is a racially isolated district. Duluth is almost to the point of being racially isolated with our comparison to the Lake Superior district. We have about 18% greater diversity than the Lake Superior district. And if you look at demographic trends, we're diversifying every year. So we receive money though because we are racially identified. We have a racially identifiable school, and that's Myers-Wilkins. And that means the enrollment of protected class students at Myers-Wilkins is more than 20% compared to the number of protected class students K through 5 as an aggregate district-wide. We would also, though, be eligible to receive achievement integration funding because we may not be geographically adjoined to Cloquet, but the way that MDE defines adjoining districts, we're adjoined with Cloquet. And then we could be eligible for achievement and integration through voluntary by asking the state to allow us to be in the program, but they typically don't approve voluntary status. There are about 175 districts throughout Minnesota that receive achievement and integration funding. So what is a racially identifiable school? We kind of talked about this. Myers-Wilkins has about 58% students of color, and so, which is greater than the aggregate percentage of any of our other K through 5 student populations.
Can I ask a question about that? I know you said you said throughout
Yep.
our way
Oh,
to
yeah,
the
yeah,
end.
yeah.
So when we do have a racially identified school, and we've heard this before, I've
Mm-hmm.
known this since even the first year I was on the board, is there a expectation that that's something we would want to work towards not having? Or is it just a fact and it's logistics and it's border boundaries? And because we have a racially identified school, we know it, we support it, we know that those are, students that we want in our district. So, fair question?
Yeah,
Confusing
no, it's
question?
a good question. There's an expectation that there are programmatic strategies within the plan that support desegregation of the school. MDE is pretty thoughtful that schools and school districts don't typically have a lot of control of the population of the communities and within the neighborhoods. So there isn't accountability measures or any sort of mandate that we pursue desegregation with all of our powers. So, yep. Added this slide here. What does if you could go to the next slide, Patty. Nope, that next one there. Oh, wait, no, that was the right one, sorry. Just a protected class student, basically just, this is MDE's definition, basically student of color, so categories African, Black Americans, Asian, Pacific Americans, Chicano, Latino, Hispanic, American Indian, Alaska Native, Hawaiian, and multiracial. All right, and a common misconception is the achievement and integration is provided through a grant, whereas it's not administered as a grant, but it's a 70% state aid and 30% local levy appropriation from years and years and years ago. And A&I payments are made through districts to the state's IDEA's aid system. This is how funding is calculated, so $350 times the district's adjusted pupil units for the current year times the ratio of the district's enrollment of protected class students from the previous year divided by our previous year's total enrollment. So basically means every student in the district generates about $190 of achievement and integration funding. And that's why you'll see that some of our strategies within the achievement plan are spread out through the district and not all concentrated at Myers-Wilkins.
Mr. Smith, can you just repeat that real quick? It generates 190 per student or 190 per student of protected class?
Per student. So they
student. Okay.
found a creative way to factor in the ratio of protected class students without directly funding like protected class students because it's like an inclusive ratio or formula. Yeah. So we need to spend our funding on aligned with the achievement and integration program goals. I talked about this in the initial slide, but to increase racial economic integration, reduce achievement disparities, and increasing access to effective and diverse teachers. The parameters we have to spend of the money, we receive about $1.7 million, and 80% has to be spent on direct student supports, or up to 80%, up to 20% on professional development, and up to 10% on administrative costs. A&I plan input, so we have to receive input from the community for the strategies within the achievement and integration plan through a community collaboration council. We use our education equity advisory council to solicit recommendations and feedback for what is in the achievement and integration plan and updates. We also get feedback from the American Indian Parent Advisory Committee and staff and families at the racially identifiable school, Myers-Wilkins. So we have, these are district-wide strategies and supports. I have slides that kind of get into these, but district-wide, we have our integration specialists, we have our social emotional learning specialists, family engagement programming, Ojibwe language teacher coordinator, and our OEE recruitment and retention program, and the professional development that we offer through OEE. So strategy one, integration specialists. We currently have 12 integration specialists supporting our elementary schools, middle schools, high schools. New this year, we have integration specialists within our treatment centers, residential school sites, and helping students transition as they get services through the AJC. And all integration specialists have a roster of about 20 students that they roster based on assessment data, MCA or other benchmark, and also referrals from site staff, administrators, or student support teams within the site. They do a lot of family engagement and cultural learning opportunities, and all of them have different extracurricular type clubs that they do, including things like student council or international club, passport club. We have a social justice club at East and at Ordine East and a few other clubs. So trying to provide enrichment opportunities, extracurricular, and also supporting students within academics, attendance, and behavior.
We have a question from member Lawful Kemp.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nate. Just a couple things. The 12 full-time integration specialists, are we hoping to have more, or is 12 kind of the cap we've decided on?
12 is the cap within the funding from the Achievement Integration Plan. I would love to have more and support as many students as we can. I know our district, though, navigates budget constraints and other challenges. So 12 is what we got within the plan, and as we solicit for feedback when we write the plan, they are tremendously valuable that our community has determined, but also some of the other things are really important, like the professional development, which takes a big part of our budget, and some of our social emotional learning, and we have some reading and math interventionists and stuff too. So it's trying to find that balance.
Okay. And our integration specialists are a part of a union, right?
Yep. They are their own organized union affiliated with Education Minnesota.
Okay. I remember that. Thank you. I have been following the integration. I actually did a grad paper on it when they first began. So
cool.
I love all the updates that we get. So thank you, and thank you for clarifying how many.
Absolutely. They do amazing work. They are literally saving lives. And even at a future COW meeting, I'm sure that the team would be open just to come and share about just some of the dynamics of the challenges and the successes that they see within their roles. All right. So our other district-wide strategies are social emotional learning specialists. This is Taylor Walling. Most of the support that she provides is at Lowell Elementary School, but she provides additional support on the district PBIS team and supports the development of the culturally responsive part of the PBIS and utilizes culturally responsive strategies, resources, materials when working with students. She does some Tier 1 SEL support, but a lot of, I lost what I was going to say. But she does a lot of really good SEL support. So we have our achievement and integration recruitment and retention. And so this is done through the following strategies. We are working on creating affinity groups district-wide, and that includes asking staff to self-identify themselves as a person of color or within the LGBTQIA plus community. Just because I think I know someone's identity or it's physically obvious, we have to allow on folks to self-identify to be included within the affinity group structure. So we had a affinity group meeting this year in December, where we met at Pizza Luce, just to get together, build some relationships, discuss district climate dynamics and intentional relationship building and networking. We had about 30 folks self-identified and 17 participants at that initial event. We had another one scheduled for March 25th that was canceled, but we came back together on April 29th, about a week ago, I guess, at Skyline. We just did something fun. That was some of the feedback. A little less structure and a little bit more opportunity for some enrichment engagement. We had about 20 folks attend that event, and some really great feedback and really great connections from staff from different levels, from paras to teachers to administrators, to folks working in transportation. And so it's just been really cool just to kind of see some of these networks blossom. And we know through retention research that when folks feel connected with others within an organization, they're more likely to stay.
Jumping in.
Yep,
Wow,
yep.
that was very loud, sorry. Just to clarify, I know you and I have talked about it, but I guess for everybody else's general knowledge, that's open for board members as well.
Yep.
So anyone identifying as LGBTQ or BIPOC can
Yep.
participate from the board?
Absolutely. And I know also during that previous conversation when I shared months ago, talking about as we expand our definition of diversity to include folks experiencing disabilities as well. But we haven't quite got there yet within this portion. Providing staff with access to additional professional development through the affinity groups, and hiring a new professional development coordinator that you all approved the position of about a month ago, will support increased access to professional development for staff within the affinity groups. Continued, I personally provide additional support and resources for staff experiencing intercultural or racial conflict throughout the schools. Staff reach out to me, and I help mediate restorative conversations and or get referred to the office. The plan is to develop some type of mentorship program for interested staff of color, and we're working on developing what that looks like at affinity group meetings. Within the Achievement Integration Plan, we have an anti-bias, implicit unconscious bias training for human resources staff with a goal, reportable goal to MDE of 90% of staff trained this year. HR has reported that 100% of their staff have taken a 4-hour self-guided asynchronous Kierwood Institute training. The training's linked here, and it offers a implicit bias certification. I've gone through it multiple times. I recommend it. So if you all are interested in getting certified yourself, I encourage you to do so. And then I have a goal. I'm working on developing a culturally responsive hiring strategy training for HR. It's in works. Achievement integration continued. We're continuing the development of a racial diversity recruitment team. We currently have 12 diverse employees who have been identified or have volunteered to support the district in screening and serving on interview teams, and also attending job fairs, with the idea that if we're going to job fairs and people see like-minded or identified individuals racially or culturally, that they're more likely to feel comfortable expressing interest or seeking more information about employment. The HR team has participated in 5 job fairs so far, attended by diverse candidates, and we are scheduled to attend the Juneteenth celebration, which is Wednesday, June 10th, in the Central Hillside. And this will be the 3rd year that team has gone to Juneteenth. And recruitment and retention, working on staff being able to use their preferred name. And so the Human Resource Department has revised the badging process, allowing for employees to use their preferred name, and is working with the technology team to address how that works with email, computer logins, and the like. Email seems to be figured out because I know folks who's using their preferred name via email. Other equity recruitment retention initiatives we've applied to and are eligible for the Come Teach in Minnesota grant. So if there's a staff of a teacher of color who's outside of Minnesota, who's eligible for a teaching license in Minnesota and comes and works for our district, on the day of hire, we can give them $5,000, which is a pretty big deal that the state of Minnesota funds. If that teacher stays for 4 years teaching, we can give them another retention bonus of $5,000. So it's a pretty cool. The Office of Education Equity supported the district in HR's application to Grow Your Own by providing written narratives to identified questions. They sent out notice, and I was recently told that we didn't receive the Grow Your Own grant. But the Human Resource Department partnered with Career Force and applied for and received the Drive for 5 grants. And that grant allows for supporting individuals to work in education and focusing on low-income households and BIPOC individuals, and focusing on diversity, equity, inclusion, and retention training for staff to increase the understanding of welcoming and retaining a diverse workforce. So strategy number 4, designed to bring together staff, parents, caregivers, students, and community. This is facilitated by the integration specialist, just pulling together some of the families that they work with, talking about how they can gain access to district, school, classroom resources, how to communicate with school staff, have conferences with teachers, foster educational learning environments at home, how important it is just to have a table where kids can get some work. We provide food, childcare, and transportation support for family engagement. All right, strategy number 5 within the A&I plan. So right now we are providing a Seeking Educational Equity and Diversity training. It's a 24-hour training covering all the topics here that meet the Pellsby standard for cultural competency relicensure requirements. So it's a pretty big deal that we can offer this as a district free for our teachers. We have a current cohort at Denfeld that is ending next week with about 20 staff, and we've opened up and are advertising currently for another cohort June 24th-ish. And that's going to be just 4 straight days, about 6-hour days. So if you know folks who are teachers who need the cultural competency relicensure component, encourage them to sign up. We got some space. So strategy number 6, we have our middle and high school Ojibwe language teacher coordinator. So we have one from the A&I plan, and the district is also funding another Ojibwe language teacher. But teaching Ojibwe 1, 2, and 3 in both of our high schools. And the Ojibwe 3 course is an approved CITS course to work on the enrollment disparities with American Indian students registering and completing college-level courses in high school. They're also working on Ojibwe language programming in our high schools, working with school counselors to reduce stereotypes, and are currently working on a language revitalization project. So you'll see in some of our schools, some of our like restrooms will be then listed in Ojibwe underneath. All right, so that's our district-wide. So getting into our strategies and supports for our Myers-Wilkins, our racially identifiable school. We have an enrichment coordinator, young scholars program facilitator. Well, I'll just get through this as we go through it. So first one is reading interventionists. We have licensed teachers who are highly skilled in reading, providing intervention, strategic or intensive to diverse students at Myers-Wilkins School, using intervention materials that reflect the racial and cultural identity of the students. We have our Ojibwe immersion classroom assistants. So we have 2 folks who are at Lowell, and part of this intention is to support the Masabekong language program with robust resources, with the idea to draw on students who are American Indian from the Myers-Wilkins district to Lowell. We have our in-school learning opportunities and field trips. So this is to provide students at Myers-Wilkins hands-on learning experiences, enrichment opportunities, field trips, family nights, all using culturally responsive strategies and curriculum materials to validate students' cultural racial identities. All the family nights free of charge. Transportation is provided for folks that require it. And we partner with the collaborative for the enrichment and for strategy number 4, after school and summer programming. So Myers-Wilkins offers a free summer programming every summer for the students who are enrolled at Myers-Wilkins and students who live within the community. And that's partly supported by the Achievement and Integration Plan, but facilitated by the Duluth Community School Collaborative. And then we have our professional development strategy for Myers-Wilkins, and this is just a pot of money that we can support the professional development learning for the staff there within the focus areas of culturally responsive practices, undoing racism, curriculum development and integration, and racial identity development. We have our math interventionist at Myers-Wilkins, and same kind of thing as the reading interventions, just a highly skilled teacher that is usually using culturally responsive strategies and materials. And we have our social emotional learning specialist. This is Liz Bakowitz at Myers-Wilkins, and she is a full-time school counselor, social worker, focusing on SEL for the whole school, serves on the school MTSS social emotional behavior team as the lead. They're aiming to reduce behavioral referrals of suspensions, increasing attendance rates through SEL initiatives. So we have this one, the equitable enrollment option. So the district has absorbed the cost of this strategy and is working on a transition plan. So what we've had here is the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 years or so, we've had, a strategy was created to support the desegregation of Myers-Wilkins and Lowell with using achievement integration funds to provide transportation for Myers-Wilkins students to go to Lowell and Lowell students to go to Myers-Wilkins. But after these years, we've seen it's almost had the opposite intended effect, where white students within the Myers-Wilkins district are going to the Spanish immersion at Lowell, and students of color within the Lowell are choosing to go to Myers-Wilkins. We have our RAS strategy number 9, and this is just supporting the purchase of intervention materials for our literacy, our reading interventionists and our math interventionists to get those culturally responsive materials that they work with the kids with. Whew. And then we have our kindergarten instructional assistants. So we have 2 kindergarten pairs just supporting the 3 kindergarten classrooms at Myers-Wilkins, utilizing the culturally responsive strategies and supporting some of the early learning disparities. You can look at some of the numbers. There's disparities between the students entering kindergarten at Myers-Wilkins versus students like entering Lester Park, for example. So just increased support. We have our site enrichment coordinator and Young Scholars Program facilitator. So they provide gifted and talented learning opportunities for accelerated academic growth for identified K through 3 students at Myers-Wilkins, with the goal to provide young scholars gifted and talented learning opportunities and identify students in a unique way other than like how they're doing on Fast Bridge scores or MCA. So identification of gifted and talented is through like teacher observation and referral. And so we're able to make our E-squared program more diverse by getting these kids involved in the K through 3, because then E-square starts after that. And then they also are the site enrichment coordinator that's supporting extracurriculars and field trips and publishing that kind of thing on social media and sharing it with the broader community, with the idea that the community sees all the really cool things that are happening at Myers-Wilkins. Families outside the district may choose to send their students to Myers-Wilkins. And that's what I got. That's the achievement and integration plan, and it might have been a little more than 10 minutes, but questions, reflections?
Member Derek Geter.
Hi, I'd like to just bring us back to the racial identifiable school strategy number 6, the math interventionists. Under the methods, there's 2: utilize culturally responsive strategies and materials, and then validate students' cultural and racial identities. And can you tell me a little bit about what that looks like? Because I think there's a misconception in communities that thinking that the way you teach math is you just put the numbers on the board and division and algebra and all these things, it just is what it is. But can you speak a little bit to how important it is in topics like math and science to making sure that we are teaching the students in front of us and that we are being culturally responsive, and that this isn't looking at math or science this isn't a lesser way of teaching math and science, but this is a way that you can teach math and science and make it open and accessible to all of our students, and how this really in the end is going to be very important for helping lift those math, science, and reading scores of those students in those classrooms. So can you speak a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I can share briefly. Peter Lancrete, who's in this position, could likely share more, but I think it's as simple as using different ways of learning or making connections. So I know like wigometry and making like incorporating and the connections of like geometry within some of the like the ceremonies of indigenous folks, and like that's one example. And I can follow up with more though as I.
No, I just wanted really to make sure that our community hears that and then they understand that when we're teaching these subjects, what we're doing is open accessibility to everybody and to all students in our schools so that math and science are accessible to all. And hopefully what we see is as students progress up, we see more and diverse scientists and engineers and mathematicians and statisticians and all those things. So that's really, I'm really thrilled to see that we are using these practices in math and science. So thank you.
Cool. Good to hear.
Thank you. Superintendent Magus?
Yes, I just want to say thanks to you, and I also want to say thanks to the team as a whole. It's pretty obvious from the slides that there are many, many people that are part of this plan and part of this work. And when we think about our three strategic focus areas of every student, supporting every student, advancing equity, and improving systems, this is perfectly aligned with the advancing equity work that we have as a district. And I want to say thanks to you, thanks to the team that's been working on this.
Chair Lowell?
So my questions kind of are around the budget. So my first question would be, is the A&I funding budget under your department, or is it a district, district pot of money that you work with the district and our HR business community to the best use of the money that we've been given, not granted?
So it's a combination of both.
Okay.
And so it's all housed within the Office of Education Equity and its own little pot of money. But we do annual budgets that are shared with MDE and with the finance department. And a lot of the strategies that we spend money on are a reflection of what our community has asked us to.
And I expected that kind of answer, and I understand that. So then when we talk in our budget for our reading interventionists, our math interventionists, our CEL instructors, is there kind of a different, so we've got MTSS coordinators, we've got reading and math interventionists throughout our district. Does that funding come from AI, or does AI's funding for math and reading interventionists go to our most diverse schools, and then the budget that we reflect on with Chair Eder pay for other interventionists? So my question is just like, we've been talking about how we're maintaining our MTS coordinators, how we're maintaining social workers and counselors, how we're retaining reading and math interventionists. And so is that AI money that helps us support all students, or is there separate pots of money that pay for our more diversified schools?
Yes.
You got it.
The answer to that is yes, there's a separate pot of money. So there's a yes to a lot of those things. So separate pots of money that fund other intervention positions. Some of them are funded out of district coffers. Some are funded out of Title I. Some are funded out of not achievement integration. Give me the other. There you go, Comp Ed, there you go. And some are funded out of Comp Ed. And we have other grants that we receive that also fund different intervention positions. And so the intervention positions that Mr. Smith is talking about or are talking about are funded out of his pot of money from achievement integration. So they are separate, but they're also counted in the amount of interventionists that we have across the district.
And I like that answer too. Just kind of understanding all of the different funding mechanisms to make sure that we are addressing all of our student needs. So just wondering how that worked. Thanks.
Appreciate that. Thank you. And thank you, Mrs. Smith. Oh,
I
sorry.
have one more, sorry.
Member Lawford Kemp.
Yeah, like-
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Thank you. Great question, Chair Leopold. I just had a couple quick questions back to the integration specialists. Do they ever come together, and sorry if this is obvious that they do, but like for their own either professional development or sharing Is that kind of a regular thing?
Yeah, we get together at least every 2 weeks or so, and part of our staff meetings just has professional development incorporated, and we have a really strong network and team with really fantastic relationships, and continue to support each other and just some of the dynamic challenges that some of our students within our community are facing. And so we troubleshoot and we support and we laugh and we cry and we work together, and we just have really a cohesive unit doing some just really life-saving work.
Excellent, excellent. And, you know, I get the opportunity to get to Myers Wilkins a couple times a week with my professional work, and it's just really clear there's a lot of adults, caring adults that are in that building, and it's really a calming place to go to. And so, you know, all of these supports that you mentioned, you know I get a sense of when I'm there for some other things. So, yeah, thank you.
Absolutely, and I will note too, my email is just nathansmith@ISD, and you all can reach out anytime. We can continue the conversation, get into the nitty-gritty of some of this, or just get to know each other a little more. So feel free to reach out anytime.
We have another question from member Meixel.
I'll try to keep it brief, but that's not my style. So this is so much work, and I remember back to your last presentation last year and hearing some of the new improvements that you've been doing. I'm curious about outcomes. I see that, you know, you have progress that you need to make according to the MDE plan that has been set forth. How are we monitoring that, and are we achieving the goals?
Yes, and by the end of the year, I will have more. I guess for every single narrative strategy within the plan has key indicator of progress goals reportable to MDE. Like some of them for like the Young Scholars program, for example, is like, who are your kids? You know, what's the diversity? What's the ratio of the students that you're working with? And so that's a reportable goal for our SEL specialists. For example, a reportable goal is, have we fully embedded Tier 1 SEL supports in 100% of classrooms at Myers Wilkins? And so I don't have the reportables for this year yet, but yeah, we do keep track. And if you click on the link within that first slide, every narrative strategy will have key indicator of progress goals that we report to MDE.
And if we're not meeting those key indicators in the rates that we anticipate we will, how are we going back and looking at things and re-upping things?
It's a little bit of both, and also just within achievement and integration, there's legislator. I don't know if you all read the legislator auditors reports, but there's within achievement and integration, there's not a lot of like MDE accountability measures, supportive or otherwise. And we look at our goals and we evaluate them yearly, and some goals like MDE requires within the plan are pretty standard, like 2% increase in the attendance of, you know, American Indian students at like across the district or within a site. And some of those goals, like for example, for the integration specialist to have like that as a goal, the MDE request to see isn't necessarily a fair indicator of the success of that position, because some students that the integration specialists work with might not even come to school at all if they didn't have that connection at school. So we might not be able to monitor and see an impact in some of the goals, but that's not representative of the work necessarily. And so I've personally been on a personal learning journey, just understanding equity within data and what that looks like. And I think as I learn more, we just have an opportunity as a district and community to transform our understanding of what kind of data is important and how we measure it. For example, to me, a more reflective measure of the work of the integration specialist is identifying the students of the roster, having a data specialist do some, you know, anecdotal qualitative interviews and, you know, go through the work of thematics and identifying impacts and themes. and putting that all into a data set. Like that's the type of data I think is a lot more meaningful than, 1% increase or some of this other data that is predictable to a point.
Thank you.
Member Sadowski?
I was looking at strategy 10 for the kindergarten instructional assistance, and then I got to kind of thinking about some of the work that a lot of our colleagues in EAC are doing with early literacy, and then got to thinking about my work on the Head Start Policy Council, and learning more about how Head Start works, how it's funded, how we're going to integrate our preschool and Head Start next year. Can you speak to maybe how your program achievement and integration is working with those programs, whether it's looking at data or collaborating to make sure that our youngest learners are ready for kindergarten, kind of even before they get to kindergarten? What is that partnership? Is there a partnership there? What does it look like? Just curious.
Yeah, I think that it's an opportunity for partnership. There isn't a direct intent from the A&I plan other than the kindergarten assistants and integration specialists work with students in kindergarten and pre-K and some younger students just by the nature of their connections with families. But as a system, as we develop our understanding of the Minnesota 10 commitments of equity and our commitment to align our systems with that, starting early is one of those commitments. And we know, through multiple different research studies that have been done, just the tremendous impact of that early intervention. We know that kids that are coming to school in kindergarten already, that know the alphabet, that know their colors, that know their numbers, are already set up for success. And so as a community, I think as we pull in community partners and the like, and we really come forward and we identify a goal of supporting our youngest kids in the community just to be ready for school, I think it could make a tremendous difference.
Thank you. I appreciate your work with this, and I think you're in a unique position too, just with your knowledge of all this different subcommittees within EAC. So it's exciting to see where those connections will go.
Thank you. Slow, steady progress.
Thank you. Seeing no additional questions, I want to say thank you, Mr. Smith, for presenting tonight. And I want to say thank you to the board for those questions because you're asking the right questions. Those are the things that we have been discussing for, more intently over the last few months, is really having evidence of our impact of the work that we're doing and how do we evaluate systems, how are we evaluating outcomes of the programming that we're offering. So continue to ask those kind of questions because I've shared with the team that those are the things that we really want to start conveying in a more significant way to the community and to the board. So thank you. Thank you, Ms. Smith. Chair Loaf, I'm going to pull an audible. I'm going to call an audible at the moment, and we're going to skip to the presentation related to Check and Connect and our Check and Connect update. So I'm going to ask our students and our coordinator for our Check and Connect programmer, Sarah Lalladin. And she's coming as well as she has guests, and she'll take the time to introduce our students. And so I'm pulling that audible because they've been really, really patient already. And I know at the pace that we are on right now, they would be sitting out there for a couple of hours. And I just appreciate them coming and being with us. And so I'm going to turn this over to Sarah. So, Sarah.
Thank you. I'm Sarah Lalladin. All right. I'm Sarah Lalladin. I'm the coordinator of the Check and Connect program. We're going to give you a little presentation just about Check and Connect, where we've come from and where we're at now. So some of you that were here last year, it'll be a little bit of a repeat. Then we get to move to the fun stuff, where we're going to introduce our mentors and students that are here with us tonight and ask them some questions about how Check and Connect has supported them. So what is Check and Connect? Check and Connect is an evidence-based program where we work with students that are showing warning signs of disengagement and are at risk of dropping out. So it's a program and an idea where we have a mentor that is meeting with a student intentionally at least an hour a week to check attendance, behavior, and course performance, and come up with strategies to help them be more engaged and successful in school. There's also a connect portion where they're meeting with the parents, having student and parent engagement. Most of the mentors work with students for at least 2 years. Several students end up working with a mentor through their whole high school career. So how did Check and Connect get started at Duluth School District? So back in 2015, Duluth Schools was identified for low graduation rates for American Indian and African American students on IEPs. So MDE came, we were one of 4 districts, and Check and Connect was implemented as the evidence-based program that would support increasing graduation rates. We identified, though, that graduation rates should not be looked at in a 4-year matter, so we started identifying graduation rates in a 6-year manner. So that's one of the thresholds that we continue to look at today, is where our students are after 6 years. So that gives us room for transition programs, specifically when we're working with students on IEP, the Bridge program, potentially an extra time with ALC to continue those credits. So where have we been? In 2015, we started slow. At that point, we made the determination that Check and Connect was the program that was best for our district, and we started building capacity. We started with 1 mentor and then 2. We were just at Denfeld High School. Our district capacity assessment that we completed with MDE at that point was at 28%. We had a long ways to go to implement Check and Connect. Today, we sit at 96% and have been pretty consistent over the last 3 years. And to have full implementation, you need to be over 80%. We've improved graduation rates. In those first 4 years, we saw 6-year graduation rates at almost 100% of those students through the program. In the spring of 2021, we wrapped up our initial grant. That initial funding through the Department of Ed wrapped up, and we went and searched for other expansion and funding opportunities. St. Louis County worked with us and awarded us $1.6 million in American Rescue funds. That was to add mentors to every secondary school and grade. So we initially had 14 mentors across our 4 secondary schools. And after 1 year in, we realized the need for a position at ALC and also added a mentor at ALC. When we started that funding stream, we modified the mentor job description to better align with some post-pandemic needs. So our Check and Connect mentors are now mental health practitioners. We wanted mentors that had skills to provide some of that mental health support on the ground every day. Where are we now? That's a snapshot of where we are today. So we have 277 students enrolled in Check and Connect right now in the Duluth schools. It is a little lower than last year. We had one of our mentors that was out doing a student teaching rotation, so we had to do some shuffling around for a little bit. Usually we sit about 300. We have a 46% decrease in missed absences with the students in the program. The way the students are identified as that having attendance issues is in their first 30 days. So of those 277 students, 219 students in their first 30 days with Check and Connect were chronically absent. And we've had a 46% decrease in that missed absenteeism and a 38% decrease in suspensions. It should be noted that in the last 3 years, we have serviced almost 670 students in Check and Connect. Where are we going? We're going to continue to increase the percentage of those historically underserved students. I think that's something, as we got extended funding, we saw this opportunity to serve more students, but still recognize that our American Indian and African American students and those on IEPs are struggling. Our graduation rates still need to come up. So in this last year, we've went from a 39.2% students of color in Check and Connect, and now we're sitting at about 52% of our caseload being students of color. You can see where that compares to district enrollment at about 23%. We're also going to provide Check and Connect training and support to other staff across the district. So we've been training integration specialists and Indian Ed so that they continue to use this evidence-based program that we see working with students. And where are we going? We're going to utilize the next 2 years of partial funding from St. Louis County. They offered us 2 more years of scaled funding to work with, to continue the programming. We're going to continue to work with MBDE and provide professional development and support. We're really working on transitioning away from district-driven leadership and putting some of the ownership back on the building, having the buildings and their building teams be the ones that are driving the work and success of Check and Connect. And then we are going to provide additional training and support to use data to identify students. We've come a long ways with the use of EduClimber and really being able to look at the thresholds of our students and identify those students that need Check and Connect. All right.
Superintendent Magus has a question.
Yeah. No, I'm just so grateful for this work. It's extremely important and very, I think when you hear the individual stories, it's even more moving, and I'm looking forward to the Check and Connect graduations at the sites coming up. And I don't mean this as being overly critical, but on the slide where we talk about where we're going, and just looking at the data where we had an increase in the students of color that we're serving through Check and Connect. I think that's awesome. Wondering what happened with the special education rates and the free and reduced lunch rates, why it's maybe slipped back a little bit, or are there things that we can do to better support Check and Connect to make sure that we're keeping those areas moving in the right direction? And again, I'm deeply, deeply appreciative of the work that you're doing. And
IEPs but I think at this point, it has just been the transition of the program. I think we are still focusing on the attendance, behavior, and course performance. I think some of the schools are feeling like we are really providing the needed support through an IEP. So making sure that we consider if the support is being needed and not to duplicate.
Keep going.
Okay.
Yep.
So now I'm going to introduce you guys to a couple of our students and staff and just ask them a couple questions. So here we have Bitsy Zwak. She's one of our mentors at East High School. She is actually retiring this year and got forced into coming here today, so we appreciate her being here. And we have Chris and Nick. They're both seniors at East that have been in Check and Connect for the last 3 years, so they've been with the program the entire time that it's been at East. And so, Nick, can you tell us a little bit about how Check and Connect has supported you?
Yeah, in multiple just ways of like problem solving and handling emotions and finding skills for almost anything. Academically, my attendance has improved greatly. There's no downside. It's just everything's been good, and I'm really glad that I did it and like got into it. And it's like a place where where I like know when something's bad or something, like I have someone to go to, and like a way out type of thing, and still being able to focus on school and what I need to focus on.
Chris, what skills do you
I'll kind of speak for both of us because I got introduced to Zwak with Nick because we were best friends. And I'd say at the end of my sophomore year, you know, I was like a 1.0 and under GPA student, not really caring about school. I was just going to go because I kind of had to. And now I'm a 3.0 and above. And, you know, I'm sure my family's so happy about it. They are. You know, and it's crazy to think about because me and him have come a long way. And, you know, we were always getting in trouble doing dumb stuff, you know, really just not caring that much. And, you know, it's kind of crazy to think how far we come. I would have never thought I'd be graduating. I'm going to be straight. I never thought I'd graduate. And then I think I am, and I'm going to college. Showed me a lot. Helped me find a college I'm going to. I'm going to be linesman school next year. And, you know, I just think it's a great opportunity. I never thought seeing myself in this position at all.
Great, thank you. Bitsy, what growth have you seen in Nick and Chris since they've been in Check and Connect?
Well, it's kind of, you know, you look at the numbers and you guys like to see the before and the after and to know whether it's working or not. And just to have them come here and be able to share this with you shows that Nick, I knew Nick before I became a Check and Connect mentor as a pair in the EBD classroom, and he kind of got left on his own. I left, and then the teacher took a different job, and he kept showing up in my room and showing up in my room. He kept connecting with me. So I pulled some strings, Sarah pulled some strings for me, and at East, we don't usually serve kids on IEPs because we don't need to double up on services. And he got added to my caseload, and it was just a natural fit because we already knew each other. And ironically enough, Christian was his friend. So working with the two of them, it was really easy for me because they could give me insight on each other. But Nick has grown immeasurably and been able to deal with his anxiety and realize that some anxiety is a good thing, but he's able to use it to move forward. And very, very proud of him, and help him realize areas he can still work to improve, and that he's come a long way. Christian, I can remember a meeting with Christian, and I kind of caused him to shut down. We tried to identify some emotions and figure out where he was at, and I didn't even realize that I shut him down until later on in the day, and Nick said, "Christian isn't talking, what's going on?" But he's come a long way now, and showing them the mutual respect and seeing them respect me back and pushing them hard to reach goals. I pulled out some paperwork for my file for Chris, and he had like 4 Fs a year ago to this, starting third quarter. And I mean, his goal this quarter is a 4.0, if not a 3.5. So I mean, he's really changed his attitude. And I can tell him what to do, but bottom line is these kids have actually walked the walk and found the motivation. And I've just been consistent with them and helped them get there. So very grateful for them.
Thank you. And to my right, I have April Howard. She's a Check and Connect mentor at Denfeld, and Jaden Kovac. He is a senior at Denfeld. So Jaden, how do you think Check and Connect has supported you towards graduation?
It supported me in a lot of ways, coming in to Check and Connect 4 years ago now. So I worked with Sarah when she was still kind of doing it. Then I was with another Check and Connect mentor, but I was about a year and a half behind in credits. And Miss April, she put me on track. She stepped in and helped me get on track with ALC, met with my counselors because I couldn't write an email probably until a year ago. So writing an email to my counselors to sit down to get the ALC credits and crank out a year and a half of credits and just work. But I guess, Check and Connect's like, it's not just, I guess, a program. It's more like a family away from home because I've never liked school until about high school. And that's when I get to go into Check and Connect and just go and realize that I'm going to walk the stage and have fun and go on to college, I guess, to go in for business and finance. So I guess, they helped me in a lot of ways more than just, it's not just like, oh, you got to go to school and do homework. It's go to school, talk to somebody, make sure you're on track. And then, my mom's busy all the time. So when April does call and lets her know that I'm doing good, then at home everything goes good and everything just gets to go just keeps carrying on. So it benefits in a lot of ways, I guess. ALC, attendance, behaviors, whatever personal stuff you got going on. There's always somebody to talk to, so that's kept me on track to graduate, and now I get to walk the stage in 16 days. So that's the fun part. And yeah, that's all I really got.
And April, how have you seen Jaden grow since he's been working with Check and Connect?
I've been lucky enough to know Jaden pretty much his whole life. So coming into Check and Connect, I came from Lincoln and did ISS and restorative practices. So coming to Denfeld was a big change and getting to see a lot of my old students. Getting Jaden, yes, he was about a year and a half behind. 11th grade didn't go so well online. A big part of what we do is the relationship, and that I can't stress enough. The relationship you have with your students is the difference in them being motivated, them wanting to show up. Even on a bad day, he can come in and he can tell me, my morning sucked. This is what went on. We talked through it, we worked through it, and then he's ready to go. He's grown a lot. He's taken on a lot of responsibility in the last few months, and he knows that I will be on your phone at 7:30 in the morning. Where are you? What are you doing? Hey, did you forget where the building is? When your kids walk in and they're having a bad morning, we give him crap all the time. That's what kind of gets him out of the funk. Like he said a year ago, he probably couldn't have wrote an email very well. His growth in English, all those things. a 504 that had kind of been pushed aside. I was able to find and re-implement, teaching him to advocate for himself. There's been a few times where we had to go to bat, and seeing a young man in a position where he can speak for himself respectfully and honor a teacher in a position that maybe the teacher shouldn't be honored because it was out of control, out of hand. And he stood there completely respectfully and got the end result that he needed. So it is kind of a full circle thing. And like I said, I've known him since he was born. But I never expected him on my caseload. And it's been amazing. What we do is life-changing.
Thank you. Congratulations to all of our students. Let's give them all a round of applause. And thank you, Sarah, for all the work you do to pull this program off and pull things together because, these students here demonstrate that that we can do it, right? The power of this program, the focus, attention for our students that, they came out of their own mouths, their relationships, the attention that they receive, and so it's appreciated. And again, board, this is another example. All night long, you're gonna keep hearing about different opportunities and programming that we provide in the district to really meet the needs of our students, and it's really good to uplift programs and students when we can. And so just want to say thank you. Any questions from the board? Member Sadowski?
I don't have any questions, but I just wanted to thank Chris and Nick and Jaden for coming here tonight and sharing a little bit of your experience with Check and Connect. So it's always really valuable for us to hear from our students. So thank you for taking the time and waiting tonight, and I'm glad we could move you up.
Member Mikesell?
This is amazing. You guys are amazing. Staff, thank you for all you do. The comment about the county giving us only 2 more years of funding at that partial. I'm curious about what our future budgetary alignments will be to keep this successful program going.
Well, I'll say right now, and Executive Director Zunic can share, we've already factored in that expense right now for the next 2 years for the additional costs related to the programming. And so what we are hopeful is that we will continue to look for additional resources that could help support the program moving forward. And at the end of the day, as you were sharing earlier and asking earlier, we're going to take a hard look at all of our programs to make sure that we, moving forward, that we prioritize those things that are really working for our students. And that's what we're going to do moving forward is making sure we're investing in the right program. And as always, we need evidence that they're working. So right now we have the funding for next year and the following, and we're going to continue to look for additional resources. Member Lawful Kemp, and then Member Derek Eater.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah and April and Mitzi for your work, and Nick and Christian and Jaden. We look forward to shaking your hand at graduation, and just really appreciate you coming here and speaking with us. I love, Jaden, what you said, that I'm going to be thinking about this a lot. It's not a program, but it's like a family at school. And thank you for reminding us this isn't about programming, it's about relationships. So thank you so much, all of you.
Thank you for coming, and I'm sure it's great to listen to all these adults drone on about how wonderful you are, right? Did you think maybe like 3 years ago you'd be sitting in front of the school board and we'd be saying how great you are? So I think that speaks to the power of the program too, the capacity of kids to change, and that the important part of the school board is that, and the school district, is that we never forget that every kid has greatness within them. So thank you for being here. I just had a quick, how much funding do we receive from the county? And is the funding looking at like supporting the people involved? I can't. Yeah.
So as we transition to the next 2 years, they offered us some extra funding. It was supposed to be only the first 3 years, and it was American Rescue Funds. So for next year, they will be providing 70%, and the Duluth School District will be covering 70% or 30%. That is for staff and some training. outside of my position, which was already a held position. The year after that, the Duluth School District will cover 60% and St. Louis County will cover 40%.
I've already emailed this presentation to Counselor Grimm and Counselor Harla, so we can make sure that they can see, and then we'll make sure they get a hold of their testimonials, your testimonials too, because this is pretty incredible.
I do want to apologize that I noted when I got here today that the graduation rate slide, because we were getting it updated from last year, got pulled out. So I will get that put back in there and we can get it sent out. That just shows you the progression of 6-year graduation rates. So if you click on that link, it is not working, but we will get it put back in and emailed out.
Chair Lawful?
So just a quick question of April and Bitsy, as how many students, do you typically stay with a student for the year? So if you've got a caseload of 9 or 11, those are the same 9 or 11 or 18 or 20 that you work with consistently throughout the year? Or, because I know there's a team of you. And so do you all kind of work with the same group?
Over at Denfeld, we have 4 mentors. We have the capacity of about 25. I currently have 23. I started my year at 23. At one point, I dropped down to 19. We lost students to other schools. And then we slowly add back in through bar meetings and SST meetings when they determine who has greater need. So our numbers do fluctuate. If you have students that are just not willing to participate or moving schools, going ALC full-time, we've lost a few to ALC online. Typically, though, I have been here 2.5 years. I have some of my kids still. I have 1 or 2 from when I started in the beginning that will be graduating this year. I would say on my caseload, I've had most of my kids, the majority, at least 19 of them for most of the year. Probably 10 were from last year. So I'm at that 2-year mark. Well, next year we'll have to really reassess. I have some that should graduate from the program successfully. Attendance is remarkable, grades are passing. We have some that we just have to figure out different strategies. And, working with your 9th graders is a little bit more challenging because they don't always get their 9th grade year, what this means, so I lose credits, big deal. So my attendance sucks, whatever. So we work with a lot of that, and that's where we probably will be pushing harder with those next year. So I would say, yeah, most of our kids we keep over at Denfeld anyway for the majority of the 2 years. A few stay longer.
So do you have 23 and then the other 3 Check and Connect also have between 15 and 20? Or is the 23 in the program with the 4 of you?
No, the majority of us, I believe, are 21 and at least 21, and I think 2 are at 21 and 2 are at 23. So yeah, we all have our own caseloads. So in a week's time, I see all 23 students. I connect with parents. If I got to be into an IEP meeting, whatever we got to do.
Thank you. Member Williams? Oh, I apologize if I...
Are you sure? Okay. One, I want to, again, like everyone else, congratulate our 3 students. It's really awesome to see where you have come from and all the opportunities that are ahead of you. And I wanted to maybe encourage you as you're thinking about what you're doing next when you you said you're going to college, and I don't know what your guys' plans are. Consider careers in education and maybe giving back to this very district and maybe advocating for future students in this very program, and which you can do now as seniors. And yeah, I just wanted to say that, your stories are so encouraging and can really help a lot of other people. So thank you very much for sharing. I know this is not a fun way to spend a weeknight. So yeah, so thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it. Next up, we're going to go back to the top of the list. We will start off with our presentation related to our secondary schedules update. The plans and recommendation presented by Director of Secondary Schools, Jen Larva, and Principal on Special Assignment, Danette Sebo.
In the pause, if we're waiting for someone to come back, I wanted to add that one of the reasons that program is so successful is because we hold to it and we implement it with fidelity. and that takes a ton of work and support and supervision. There's a team from the state that meets with Sarah and our team frequently. This is the gold standard program. If you're doing it well, this is what it looks like, and it takes a lot. And I would also add that Nick is already giving back. He's working as a student intern in our construction program.
Yeah, I was going to say they're a tough act to follow. It's always great when we get to hear from our students. And I'm going to kind of talk about that a little bit too, that part of our plans and things moving forward, we're trying to hear from our students as well as we're making our plans. So Danette and I are here today just to come to you to share our updates on some of the secondary pieces that we have. I know I came to you earlier in the year to talk about the course catalog for the high school and the middle school. I've also come to you to talk about the middle school model earlier. These are updates and additions as new information has come out, and we wanted to ensure that you are fully aware of things. So that's where we're starting. So you can see we're going to update you on the secondary schedule plans. We are also going to make a recommendation that the board will need to act on for some new graduation requirements. We also are recommending some new course additions. With our 7-period day at the high school, we have some changes that we'd like to see happen, and then we'll talk a little bit about the next steps. I think this next slide is pretty important. You know, when we talk about the 10 Minnesota commitments to equity, where are we at with this? We're taking a look here. We're prioritizing equity when we're looking at some of these new course offerings. I want you to keep that in mind, that we really were focusing on equity. And then we also want to make sure that we're giving students some options as well. So just kind of giving you that as a framework as we move forward. So when we look at our middle school model and our 7-period day, I just wanted to show you where we are at with our middle school model planning. So we've already brought forward that we are moving forward with a middle school model that has 7 periods embedded in it. We have 3 of the days during the week being skinny days, and then we have more block days on 2 days of the week. During those block days, we have advisory, and we also have flex time. So we've got all these components and pieces, right? Well, now we need to get the teachers ready for all of that. So you can see here, we have purchased some book titles. So we made an investment in some learning for our end of the year with the DFT contract. We had some asynchronous time that teachers were able to conduct. So we bought them books. We bought them books about advisory, bought them books about teaching on a block. We bought them books about teaming. We bought them books about being a middle school student. I mean, SEL stuff. So like we figured out 9 titles that we thought were worth it. And teachers then signed up. So they had the choice in what they wanted to take and read. And then they'll be documenting that as well. We also had everything that we did asynchronously. We wanted it to tie in to June 6th and 7th, that learning that we have. So these book choices that we have are a direct through line into the work that they're going to be doing on the 6th and the 7th. So on our professional development day on June 6th, we have contracted with the Association for Middle Level Education. They've been providing us support throughout the process, and we have 2 speakers that are going to be coming to Duluth. One of them will start the day at Ordine East, the other will start their day at Lincoln, and they're going to flip-flop in the middle of the day. So they're going to take their lunch time and move sites while the teachers are having their lunches. So the 2 big components of it are teaching in a block. One of them will speak to that, and the other one will be speaking to advisory. But there'll be like an hour that both of them will do at each, like the same hour each site. And that's more about that flex time piece. Like, how do you team for the intervention in that flex time? So they're going to cover those topics, which are some of the big cornerstones of our model on that day. We also have plans on June 7th so that our teachers, again, continuing that through line, switched up the schedule a little bit from the other sites, but we wanted them to have time to talk about those books that they have read. Like,
it doesn't make sense just to go and read the books and then not do anything with it. So they're going to come back and the sites are going to plan how they're going to consolidate that knowledge that they all have now gathered asynchronously. They're going to spend some time in teams talking about the books. They're going to spend time in their PLC teams talking about all the things that they learned on the 6th before they go into content specific team meetings that all of our secondary teachers are going to be doing with their content leads. So we're trying to embed all of these things into the learning that they're doing here in June. We also have curriculum writing that needs to happen this summer. We have new course offerings, and we are going to give some time for adjusting the current courses. So we know that pacing guides all need to be adjusted. So we have a plan. I haven't yet spoken with Anthony about the budget yet, but I will. He'll relay it to Simone later on. But we were told we had as we went into this project that we would have some opportunities to have new courses and stuff as part of our project. So we're just gonna make sure that happens this summertime. We also wanted to share that we are communicating our plans. Adele has a communication plan that she's been rolling out. I created an awful video, don't go watch it, but it does explain the middle school model, and it's on the website. I know that John's superintendent's message has been including things about our middle school model, and I know that our sites are beginning to communicate a message as well. So just that we're trying really hard to get some of these communication pieces out there for families. I just wanted to revisit again quickly in case you have not seen this, and I know that this is in the slideshow that you have. This is the middle school schedule for next year. We are going with Monday, Tuesday, and Fridays being the skinny days, and they have 47 minutes. And then the block schedules, they have longer periods of time with kids, 78 minutes on Wednesdays and Thursdays. On a short week, just so you're all aware, if it's a 3-day week, we're just running skinnies. But if it's a 4-day week, we're running blocks. So we have the availability to do that. We also have some things with A and B schedules. So if you have a middle schooler, there might be a little bit of a learning curve. Like, is this an A block week or is this a B block week? And we have A and Bs every other, so it's going to be a little bit of a learning curve. But you know what? Kids are resilient and they'll figure it out. So I'm really excited about the new schedule, and I think teachers are beginning to embrace it. So I think it'll be a very positive experience for kids. I'm super excited about advisory, having that time with teachers. They're going to do it twice during the week, and having that sense of that one person, like we talked about Check and Connect and how that relationship is so important there, and that's part of why Check and Connect is so successful. I think advisory is really going to be what drives our success at our middle school level and engaging those kids and building those relationships. And Flex is really exciting to me too. We still are trying to wiggle out what that's going to look like, but I think those key pieces that we haven't had before, I think are going to be exciting changes in our new middle school model. The next slide is really just giving you a quick glimpse into the 7-period day. I don't know if you had all seen this before. With the addition of 9 more minutes into the school day, I wanted you to see the start times and the end times of our 7-period day. It is not in the presentation that I had linked. I'm like, ooh, I should probably add that for you to see. So that's an addition in case you hadn't seen it. First hour used to start at 8:54. It is now starting at 8:50. 6th period ended at 3:24, and now it is ending at 3:29. So we added 4 minutes to the front of the day, 5 minutes to the end of the day. At the middle school, looking at the schedule before, we added 5 minutes to the beginning of the day and 4 minutes to the end of the day. We just kind of flip-flopped it so that transportation would be kind of similar. So, yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
So in my work coordinating school counselors, a lot of this started there, and then just trying to support Jen in implementing the middle school model and then the high school 7-period day. I'll talk for a bit and we'll let her cut in if she needs to. So our current graduation requirements are there. I will note that WIN is included in that total. WIN will go away with the new 7-period day. Also, the 22.5 credits is our current approved graduation requirement. Through this graduating class, we did a COVID temporary reduction of 1 credit. So the class of 2024 credit requirements are 21.5, but that was a unique distance learning impact, we really require 22 and a half. So you'll see that coming back again for next year. So when I say we're not changing anything for next year's seniors, we're not, they just don't get that 1-year credit adjustment, so. In our new graduation requirement proposal, we considered a lot of things. We requested from all of our area schools who run a 7-period day, which is pretty much everyone, what their current requirements are and what the courses that they require are. You'll see some new courses coming that will help with that step up and serve a lot of purposes. So you'll see the build up there. You'll see that in next year's 9th graders, we'll take a class we're calling 9th grade futures. We used to offer something on a limited basis called freshman seminar. It'll be some of that in a reboot. That class and our 11th grade career, college, and life readiness will allow us to implement a lot of things and push a lot of resources at students. So we need to embed college and career readiness standards K-12. The new classes at 6th, 9th, and 11th grade will really give us a solid chance to make sure all of our students have a lot of those skills. SEL skills will come in there, just like they will at 6th, 9th, and 11th. Our counselors will push in for some of that. There are some technology and computer science standards that will come into those. We'll kind of call them personal and academic survival skills will kind of come in there. And so media center folks will come in and help teach some lessons. So those classes will be really robust. 9th grade will be really focused on doing well in high school and being successful and starting to look beyond high school, really looking deeply at what students are doing, what some of their goals are, what things they want to try. We want to do a better job of talking through all of the course offerings with students and what some of our pathways are. The 10th grade computer science class, this is another state mandate, embedding computer science standards. The 10th grade class, along with our reworked 6th grade class, will be significant opportunities to make sure all of our students get a good chunk of those standards. In addition, this will serve as an entry level to our emerging computer science pathway in career and tech ed. So they'll be introduced to some career fields in there as well. If they get excited about cybersecurity, eventually we'll have a course built for that. If they get excited about coding. So that'll be a start there. It will all be taught on a Chromebook because we don't have desktop labs, but really there are ways to do all of those things on a Chromebook. So. And then college, career, and life readiness, we've long talked about the need for Adulting 101 on some level. So some of that will be pulled in here too. This is a chance for our 11th graders. This year's 10th confuses it, but it really is an 11th grade class. This year's 10th graders will take it next year. And that college, career, and life readiness is a chance for us to really wrap everything around those students. Do they have a tentative for now plan for after high school? What do they need from us to get there? Connecting them to resources that they might need after high school. It's really going to be a good chance for a lot of those things. These will all be required. So a year from now, we will build a personal finance class. That is yet another state mandate. There were so many that came out of last year. We're waiting on that one because some of those standards and what that needs, some more direction from the state is coming. And then the district will need to determine who's going to teach it. Is it going to be a math class? It can be math, social studies, business, or agriculture, I think. Those two broad CTE programs. So, of course, I'm recommending it CTE, but that's a story for another day. So that will come. It just is the only one that won't be ready. And I will say that initially when we had talked about adding requirements, we talked about growing one at a time. So for next year, the 9th grade one would be built. A year from now, the 10th grade would be built. However, when we registered classes for a 7-period day without adding any electives, they piled into the ones we have. And most of our electives right now, because we only had a 6-period day, were really lab and shop heavy. My favorite story is that 408 kids requested intro to foods at East, and at most we can fit 50. And that's kind of the case across all of our art classes. They're overloaded. So we saw the need pretty quickly that we needed to, in the immediate, create some elective opportunities where students can go because we don't have that many art rooms. We don't have that many manufacturing rooms, things like that. So we decided that we would create those 3 now. That would ease the burden on some of our electives and give us time to add more electives across all subject areas. So you should see more electives coming in the next course catalog, and I'm going to talk about a couple of others here as well.
Chair Lawful.
Yeah, thanks. So how about the civics mandated switch? Did that
Yeah,
get
can you
updated?
back up a slide there?
Yeah.
So some of the things that are coming out of state mandates will change as content areas adjust their curriculum. Math standards are coming. There's a lot changing with social studies.
yeah.
So those
Okay,
departments
okay.
will take those. This is really a reflection on the 7-period day. So we're asking for an increase to the credits by 1/2 credit a year. So next year's graduating seniors won't have any new required courses and will still have 22.5 credits. This will create a gap in some student schedules. They don't need to be here full-time in some cases next year. We just know that. We'll work on it. Changing credit requirements that drastically for next year's seniors is not fair.
And then are you going to have them re-register if you've added these now and you saw?
No, so I'll
Okay.
share that in a second.
Okay.
Yep. So as they step up, they'll have those new requirements and an additional 1/2 credit. I will also add that these 1/2 credit electives should be pretty homework light. We want them to be discussion focused, support focused, really working together on things, exploration with students. We hear a lot of anxiety about adding a 7th period. We're also talking about what is homework, how are we measuring student progress, all of those things are happening as well. So 1/2 credit up until we get to 24 credits. So next year's 9th grade class will be the first one graduating with 4 new semester-based class requirements and 24 credits.
Member Loeffler Kemp.
Just quick, this is so exciting. I'm curious, and maybe you're going to get to this, how we're letting families know about these opportunities, and particularly the career college and life readiness. Is there a component with?
So the time has been a challenge. There's processes to everything, and we're kind of jumping at all of them at the same time. So you are a huge part of the process because you have to approve all of these graduation requirements. So it's trickled out. There's no secret keeping in public education, maybe in business in general, but it's trickled out. When we registered students, we knew at the time that the contract was going through with a 7-period day. If you care about the intricacies, Infinite Campus was already set up to allow them to register for 7 credits because we have 0 hour. So they could take an extra credit every year, and we didn't get extra funding for it. That goes away now, 0 hours done. Everything will go back into the school day. So we already had the mechanism to have them register for 7 periods worth of courses, so we did that at registration. So we're ready. The next part of the process is to inform them of the new requirements. After this meeting, counselors have a plan to push this out to students, and principals will help push it out to families. It'll start to come from the district. We'll do our best to describe these and some other new elective options I'm going to talk about in a minute. But they haven't been built yet, and they haven't been hired yet. So we can give them a broad brush idea of what these will be, but they will change and grow as we create them. One of the other things I don't want to lose on this slide is that we are asking, and I don't believe this existed with the previous 7-period day. We went back historically, and 22.5 credits is the most Duluth has ever required. So even in our previous 7-period day, there were seniors that didn't need to be here full-time. We want to be intentional around a 7-period day and provide enough opportunities for them to get meaningful and purposeful experiences out of it. So one of the things that we would like to require is, just like now, you will be allowed one study hall per semester, period. Otherwise, you're going to be in classes the rest of the day. So right now, they can be in 5 in a study hall. That will move to 6 in a study hall. Seniors will keep the opportunity to have a study hall and an early release or late start, which financially hurts us because they're technically not enrolled full-time at that point. So we just wanted to note that that is the same, and all of this is very much on par with our area schools.
Superintendent Magus.
Thank you. No, you remarked that this is very exciting, and I would say the same. It represents a very major lift on the part of many, many people. I think that there were times when it felt like we couldn't do this, and I believe that has subsided, but to a degree. It has, correct? That was a rhetorical question. No, but we are working as hard as we can to get this off the ground. And again, part of the time crunch was, making sure that we had this go through with contract negotiations and other things. So if it seems a bit rushed, it's because it is, but it's done with thoughtfulness as well. We're putting as much resource behind it as possible. And again, when we think about that we've really revised our programming from kindergarten through graduation at this time, I think that that's a very impressive feat by our principal leaders and our district leaders, as well as the teachers who are working on this as well. So I commend you and commend the team.
In that rapid time frame, I will also say that we've worked really hard to hear from as many and get as many perspectives as we could. This doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's going to impact students. It's going to impact staff. It's going to impact the paraschedule has to be lengthened. Like all of these things are impacted by this. And so we went and talked to the student groups at both high schools. We've talked to our content leads. The courses you see on this slide really revolve around state statute and long identified needs. So easy button is not a word I want to use, but these made a lot of sense for us to put in with intentionality now. We acknowledge that courses change and evolve over time. We're going to do our best to create some really robust programming over the summer, but we'll adjust as we go, as standards change, as more information comes out from the state. They'll be slightly fluid. But the courses and what they're called and where we require them, we believe makes a lot of sense. So counselors, principals, students, and department leads have all talked in circles since we first heard this might be coming out of negotiations.
And I do want to add one piece. We've had extensive conversations as well about if a student comes into our system as an 11th grader, are we going to require them to go back and take 9th grade futures? We're not. They're just going to have that same amount of elective. This is just where we're placing them for when you're 9th grader, you need to take this class. So just so you're aware of that, if you have a kid that's coming in, transferring in, it's not going to mean that they have to go backwards and take something that doesn't necessarily meet their needs.
Same if they fail. These will be created in ALC and AEO because they will be graduation requirements, but we wouldn't necessarily make a student go back and take that. We want to make sure they're taking what makes sense and fills their needs for electives. So I think that's all I need to say about those. Okay. And then I would add that over the summer, those courses where we anticipate a lot of push-in, people will come together as a team to build them. So it will be media center staff, it will be counselors, career centers are ready to support, and then the teachers that are helping us build to teach them in their first year.
So as we get into our new course development that we're going to share on this slide, we recognized early on that we were going to need to do something. And so had some conversation with Assistant Superintendent Bonds, and there really came about like two things that we wanted to accomplish. And one of them was in support of students. So as we talk about the ones on the left-hand side, you're going to see that these are classes that are supporting students and helping them get to that graduation stage. And then the other side of things is in support of diverse offerings. And so Assistant Superintendent Bonds really said, let's take this opportunity and try to create more diverse offerings that are not in our course catalog. I mean, if you look in our course catalog, we have not offered what we should be offering. And so we took that information back, did a lot of chatting with people around what would make sense, have engaged in some conversations with our content specialists, our content leads. These may change a little bit as our content groups work on them, but we had this broad idea of what we would like to see offer, and then also finding people to teach them. So when you look at like American Sign Language, we've wanted to offer American Sign Language for a long time, and let me tell you, you go and you ask the kids, like, what courses do we need to add to your offerings? Each school, American Sign Language, there's a high desire at the student level to have sign language as one of the course offerings. But it depends upon whether we can find someone who can teach that too. So this is good stuff that we have on here, and hopefully we'll be able to push some of these things in even next year. I will let you talk about how you're going to offer that, or how you're going to find out which kids are going to want different things as well. But the one class that I'm going to really share, we've already talked about the 9th, 11th, and 10th grade classes that are at the bottom of the left-hand side, but I want to talk about this academic skills for success class that we have. It's a repeatable class. This is really going to be designed for helping our credit deficient students with some tutoring, with some life skills, with some how do we study? How do we get back that credit that we have without being credit recovery during the school day? It's really that support that they might need in order for them to push them to get their work completed for credit recovery. So we have lots of different things and ideas on here, but it's a repeatable class. So right now we have offered some FTE at both East and Denfeld. Looks a little bit different at each site, where we're doing like more of a guided study hall, like kids are put into a study hall where there's a teacher or a counselor that's kind of supporting them a little bit as they go, but they're not earning credit as they do it. So there'll be instruction in here so that we can add that credit to help also support students make that goal of graduation. Do you want to talk about the next ones?
Can I just ask about licensure? So especially like the academic skills for success, the navigating high school and beyond, and even the 11th grade college and career. Those are open-ended teacher licensure.
Anyone with a-
teacher license?
Anyone with a teacher license
Okay.
can teach those courses. What we don't want to have happen is for it to be a schedule plug, or where we put a teacher who, you know, we want it to be intentional, and we'd like for it to be fairly consistent. I mentioned earlier that we're going to push in a lot of support. There's a lot of content in there, and we really want to give our counselors, Career Center staff, and Media Center, SEL coordinator, those kinds of people access to our students in a consistent way that's not disrupting social studies. It's social studies and science that we hit all the time, because those are the only ones that students consistently have. So these are just really good opportunities for us to push out into those things. I will also add that with the elimination of WIN, we have wiped out a lot of opportunity for career exploration, and we have to figure out a way to push that back in and give students that opportunity. So I'll be working closely with the Career Center staff to try and re-envision how we do that without pulling kids out of class all the time. So the academic skills for success really will be 10th through 12th grade. We hope they're not super credit deficient by the end of the middle of 9th grade. And again, it can be ongoing. We can check in on them, how they're doing in credit recovery. We can support them in passing the classes they're in right now, and hopefully build some skills so they don't need that level of support anymore. One of the other things that we anticipate happening with the 7-period day is that we no longer need to send them straight to credit recovery to get caught back up again. They could, for example, if they failed Physical Science 9, take it again at their high school, depending on how well they did or how much they missed the year before. So we have a little more opportunity to scoop them back up at their high school site without pushing them into an additional load in the evenings in credit recovery or in summer school. So we'll have to see how that falls out too. So yes, those 3 can be taught by any teaching license. The 10th grade computer science will need to be a communication careers license if it sits in CTE. There are a couple of other licenses that go in there, but it's fairly easy to get an out-of-field place permission to teach CTE, so we have some flexibility there too.
Chair Lofel?
This is probably going in the weeds now that I think about it being almost 7 o'clock, but how would academic skills for success not be the same as Check and Connect?
In some
Or
ways
could
it
you-
is.
or could-
In some ways it is.
yeah.
We hope this is really short term. So let's
Okay.
say you really struggle in your 9th grade year, you're gonna start 10th grade in there, and we're gonna make sure you're passing all of your classes, and that you're doing those things. It can work with Check and Connect, or perhaps a student doesn't qualify for Check and Connect for some reason, and this could meet their needs. It also does it in a way that doesn't let them get more credit deficient and doesn't pull them out of other classes, which will be another challenge of Check and Connect when WIN is gone. So
I think of Check and Connect as being a tier 3. When you think about the MTSS structure, that's more of a tier well, close to tier 3. This would be more like a tier 2, so more accessible, but not everyone, but more.
Okay. So some of the, when we talked about adding diverse offerings in a hurry, we had some criteria. One of them was that it had to be offered in a space that doesn't require a lab, because those are full. We will be using all of our art, shop, science labs every hour of every day. They needed to be in a classroom that could be in a math, social studies, English, potentially in the media center. We're going to be all over next year. Space is already at a premium. It'll be an interesting schedule build summer. So that was one of our criteria, and then we wanted to spread it out a bit. I will start with the CITS Anishinaabe of Lake Superior. We are very close to being able to offer an AA without leaving Denfeld or East High School. One of the last pieces to put in, if Fond du Lac offers the AA, is this as a criteria. So for their AA programs, that's one of the requirements that we don't have. Adding a college credit for art was another one. We added ceramics. I think we have a teacher for it at Denfeld next year. So we're getting close. That's another build. Plus, it's a really great course. So we'll be working with Fond du Lac to create that as a course. Of course, we'll need to find teachers for all of these things too. CITS requires credentialing, so challenges there. And then we have a couple of ELA electives, diverse perspectives in literature, or whatever it ends up being called, and African American folklore and storytelling. Again, we believe that we won't be starting from scratch for these courses. We think there are similar courses in the state that we can start from. And then we also want to be really intentional about who helps and advises us, so that we're getting some community perspective there too. One of our goals is to really make sure there's a local focus on these things as much as we possibly can. So there's the diverse perspectives in literature and the folklore and storytelling. Those are both ELA electives. Social studies electives include the ethnic studies class. That's another state mandate. We have to offer it. It's not a required course, but we do have to offer it. We're a little ahead of the deadline, so we're a little ahead of the game with what the state is asking of that, so that one might change. And then anthropology would be another social studies elective, which is another requested class or common class in high schools. So we should have a decent pool of resources to pull from and build on.
So I want to take this opportunity to thank Danette, Jen, the content specialists, and the teachers who will be rolling up their sleeves to really pull this off this summer. We know it is happening at a fast clip here, but I truly believe it's something that's necessary, all of these different courses, and really taking several steps forward with our commitment to equity, diversity, inclusion, and representation in offerings. And so just really proud of the team for doing this work, and really thankful for the teachers who are going to work hard this summer to really make this happen. How does that analogy go, or saying go? We want to make sure that perfect is not the enemy of good, right? We know it's, we want to get started, and things will have to continue to be worked on and improved, but we really want to get started with offering these opportunities for our students. So I want to thank the team in advance.
I forgot to answer one earlier question. With the new elective offerings, not the required ones, we'll inform them of the required ones, but students will be notified within the next couple of days that we have the potential of adding some new electives to next year already. We really need to gauge their support, not their support, their intent of if I hear this is offered, if I know this. I forgot to mention the PE elective, the Global and Indigenous Games, which should be super cool. If I know that's coming, what would I trade off for it? So if I know, for example, I'm not going to get into that intro to foods, please take this off, switch it out for this. We'll build as many of those as we can. Again, we'll have to adjust FTE. There's a lot of moving pieces, but we will be gathering student interest in those new elective opportunities within the next 7 days, based on your feedback from today.
So you're first.
Member,
And these are our next steps. As you can see, like, we need you to approve the graduation requirements for us to really move forward, including those credit increases and those semester-based requirements that we've just talked about. So we're here to hear from you today too, for that. Then we'll begin that rollout of sharing with families and going to the students and adjusting those registrations. We're budgeting right now for summer curriculum writing needs and gathering writers for those courses that we're doing. And then no, you're not voting today. I know that, yes. We just need they need to know that they have to vote on it. Yes. And then we need to also make any purchase material, like resources or material recommendations too. So this is all work that needs to still happen before the start of next school year. So that's why we're coming to you today, so that we can get started with that first bullet on the next steps of like kind of hearing where you're at and what your thoughts are of what we're proposing.
you can do it, Jen. The team can do it, Jen. Member Meixel.
I agree, this is all very exciting, and I so appreciate your enthusiasm. I appreciate the flexibility and the motivation that our staff currently has and will continue to have, getting all this implemented. One question I have, and it doesn't need to be answered now, but just something that I assume that you're thinking of and will continue to address. When I meet with students, whether it's in school, in their classes, or outside, I've heard the concern that without WIN, there's many clubs that meet during WIN and other activities that they won't have that opportunity to participate in if they don't have that dedicated time during the school day or school week, or even if they meet once a month. So making sure that you're well aware that that's a concern that some of our students are bringing up.
We're well aware, and having talked to students, they're voicing that concern as well. One of the things that I am going to start doing next fall is, just like I had pulled a committee together to work on the middle school model. Yes, we know we're going to a 7-period day, and yes, we're just putting in just the basic structure of a 7-period day next year. But then I'm hoping that as we get that committee together, we might be able to refine some things, and maybe we can find a way creatively in the schedule, like every other Thursday or something, having a different altered schedule that we allow for this to happen. But we need to get a committee together to do that. So that's going to happen starting next fall.
Member Loeffler Kemp.
I wish I had a 9th grader next year. Okay. I had 3 girls and only 1 boy for a reason. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, this is really exciting, and I do wish I had a 9th grader. Maybe you said it when you quickly went through this, but did you talk about how many teachers we're going to need to hire, and then also how many staff we are going to want to have to help with the curriculum writing? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so it was budgeted for 25 additional FTE at the secondary level, and so that's between the middle school, the four traditional sites. So between the 2 middle schools and the 2 high schools, and I know there'll be some additional components that might come out of our care and treatment and ALC. We have to still have conversations around that. And as far as the number of teachers that are involved in writing, I don't have that number right now out in my head, but we're touching a lot of courses at the middle school level, so it's a significant number of writers that we're going to be having. And I know that we have these new courses that we'll be doing and any adjustments that we have. I will be reviewing information that Dale Uzelman has been really instrumental and getting some things set up and working with our content leads. Dale is awesome. And he is putting a proposal together for me to review with Assistant Superintendent Bonds, so that we can kind of figure out if we're on par with what we have available in the budget. So.
Okay, excellent. I love that you're doing American Sign Language. My son ended up doing 4 years of it in college. He would have loved to have had it in high school. So thank you, and I know it's been talked about in the past, so.
Having a
I love all your
grandchild, I
courses.
want to learn baby sign. Like, come on.
I want to go back to school with those electives.
You're all welcome to come audit a course next year.
Yeah, there you go.
Member Derek Eater.
Okay, if all works as planned and we're offering these opportunities earlier for students to get that credit recovery, and that we're building these courses. So if we see students struggling, we have built into the schedule ways to support them. What are we thinking, and everything works like we think it's going to, or at least 60% of it works like we think it's going to. What do you think the impact of what we see in our AEO and our ALC will be? And I'm sure you've talked about, I'm just curious, because I'm guessing that then some load should be shifted away from some of those.
What sorry, that got really loud. I think that the AEO, I think that's going to continue to grow. One of the things that students learned during COVID is that flexibility is phenomenal. So if you're a student athlete, if you're a student who has to work, there's just reasons that being able to take a course online is great. I have a 4-sport athlete at home who shattered a bone in her foot one year and was gonna just sit in Phi Ed and write papers. So she took it online, her physical therapy counted for it. There's just a lot of really good things that come with flexibility. And I'd also remind you that it's open to students around the state of Minnesota. So it's not just our students. So for that reason, I don't anticipate AEO shifting down at all. What I would hope is that ALC, those independent study credit recovery needs drop. There will always be students who need it. There are things that derail students that we can't prevent or support. That's going to happen despite all of our best intentions. If we don't see them, we can't support them. So that's a huge concern and a different initiative. But I would hope that those numbers would start to go down if we do see some of these things come to fruition, that I don't ever want to phrase it this way, but by adding an additional period to the day, and even with the adjustments in credit recovery, they can technically miss more credit than now and still graduate on time. They have a bigger gap between the classes they can take with us and the credits required for graduation. So there's more wiggle room there. And then I really hope, we've seen tremendous things with those. The East uses a counselor and Denfeld uses that push-in study hall to support students on a really small scale. It was a little bit of FTE that we used from the rescue funds. We've seen it successful enough that principals are going to build it into their FTE so that we're ready to support students because it's worked. So,
Member Sadowski and then Chair Loeffel.
I guess I just wanted to say thank you for all of your hard work on this. That's been said. I share the gratitude for all the time that you've put into it, all the time that you will put into it. Also thinking about our counselors too, as they're communicating with our students. I'm really appreciative of the counselors at my kids' school. And, in hearing all of these amazing opportunities that students are going to have, a lot of them are things that we've heard from parents and students and community members that they think are important for students to have. The personal finance and life readiness piece, more electives, getting rid of the 0 hour, more diverse offerings. I'm really, really excited to see the impact that these changes have and really appreciate the work that you've done. It's also been really great hearing from different parents and families and students and teachers about the changes in the elementary schedule and the impact that that has had. And I just think we're moving in a really good direction. And I know it's also a lot of work. So thank you.
So I'm going to be bolder and say that if you're looking for at least my perspective about how you can move forward, our school board meeting is May 23rd, and that will be on our agenda, but this is not, is it the 23rd?
21st.
21st. So, but this is not, I want the community to know, this is not the first time the board has been given information like this. The details are a little bit more detailed, with a lot of growth still going. So, but we've had discussion about this for a long time. So, I'm supporting what we've heard tonight because of who's sitting here, because I trust you. I respect your intelligence, your professionalism, your years of experience and service. And so what you've put together, I know that you have done, the phenomenal job. Just like I know every one of you would say the same thing that I'm saying right now, I think. And again, we have been looking for the 7-period day in the high school since we instituted the 6-period day. You know, we have wanted that, and it has danced around the district for a while, but it got some serious tread when we passed our November referendum, and this is a commitment we've made. And so, yeah, we are fast-tracking, and I know that Assistant Superintendent Bonds and Superintendent Magus are, in fact, driving you to do the hard work now. They want to roll it out. Tell me this quote again, "Perfect is not the enemy of good." Is that how, did I get it right or no? Okay, let perfect not be. See, that could be a teacher, that could be the coursework for your 9th grade. You know, your 9th graders who think that they won't try anything unless they can be perfect. So, but I love that quote. And so again, too, that, you know, we have been reading about this both at the middle school and the high school level, the changes that we as a district are implementing. So I'm comfortable with the knowledge I've got now to go forward to support you to take the next steps. I don't know if maybe the check shouldn't be written yet because we have to vote on it and we can't, we don't want to spend the money before we actually vote. But if you're looking for, have you done your work and does the board trust you? At least from my perspective, over 100%. Because again, we have grown as a board too to know that when our staff that have been employed by us, that have been educated, that are in roles of leadership here, whether you're sitting right here or the ones that are coming forward yet to present tonight, to the ones that talked at the policy meetings, we know we have great staff. We know we have vision that you're leading. And when I come to the school board table, I know I'm going to hear from the experts. And that's all I need.
Thank you for that. Member, I believe it's Laffer Kemp.
Yep, and we know that you have what's in the best interest of all of our students. So, sorry, sorry. I was thinking for you there, Jill. Sorry. I guess I'm just wondering 2 things. One is, would it be helpful if we voted on this before the 21st? And if that were true, I mean,
I think that the plans we've been making fully understand that it's not until the 21st. And so we're phrasing it all as, this is what's in motion. We want to be ready to move. So we're asking you now, would you be interested? We're informing you now, here's what's probably going to change. So we've been phrasing it that way, that it will be official. I don't anticipate you'll have a big flood of people here either celebrating or against it, but we kind of planned on knowing the timeline and just trying to make some decisions
just
there,
because, there is that opportunity for us to meet earlier and vote earlier. And so I just put that out there. And then a question about the 7-period day specific to music programs. Being wind was often, or the 0 hour was often when there were other programs. So can students still take multiple music programs if that's what they choose?
So that's
under the
why,
7-period day?
sorry. That's why 0 hour existed, was to protect those music programs. Because students who were in those small group audition-based programs were also expected to be in a large group. Otherwise, the large group would be missing all of its leaders. So that would go back to how it functioned in the 7-period day, and that was before my time here. But I think they both happened during the school day. One of the many things we'll have to navigate heading into next year, knowing that it's just going to be a straight 7, is how do we do those ensemble lessons? How do we do small group things? We don't have an opportunity to work with students. How are they going to make up a test if they missed it? How do they get help from a teacher? There's a lot of things that happen during WIN, and we're just going to have to acknowledge that one of the unintended consequences is there will be times they have to miss another class to do some of these things. We don't want students to miss out on club opportunities. We don't want to go backwards in equity in that way. We don't want your ability to participate based on whether or not you can get a ride to school at 7 o'clock in the morning. So we'll see how that feels and is navigated next year, but we know that there will be students missing one class because they have to do something for another or for a club, and we'll just do our best to support students through that as we go.
I just didn't want a negative impact on our music programs. Yeah.
yes, yep.
Or art, yeah, but particularly music, because I knew that they use the 0 hour a lot, so thank you. My oldest daughter was in a 7-period day. My other kids were in a 6-period day. I'm so excited for a 7-period day again.
Thank you. Thank you for your feedback, and thank you, Jen and Danette, for your presentation tonight. Up next, we have Executive Director Severance. She's coming up to provide an update related to our teachers on call.
I think there's a DoorDash order at the door.
And if you would like to introduce.
Good evening, thank you. So here we are tonight to talk about a Teachers on Call update, and this is a review. And I'm going to introduce Melanie Bellavides. She is our Teachers on Call on-site staff person. So she is integral in making sure that we get the subs that we need and kind of those extra steps. She meets with the principals, gets the feedback, and also does all the analysis of our rates, our fills. She does a lot of the recruitment pieces in the local market here, as well as works on the bigger picture for us. I did include in the summary here that we would talk about data analytics, substitute stats, recruitment updates, some feedback from schools and substitutes. We did pare this down a little bit, so we may not have those components, but we can certainly provide you with the larger, more narrative, but Melanie can speak to some of those general pieces that aren't included in the presentation. So I'm going to turn it over to Melanie, because she is the expert in this information.
Alrighty. Oh, it works like this. So thank you for having me. My name is Melanie Bellavilla. I'm the on-site account manager for Teachers on Call. We've been paired with the district now since September 2022. So this is our second year. And this data is from the mid-year review. Oh, perfect, thank you. So I'm going to start off with, yeah, I really can't. Thank you. Okay. So we have a comparison of 22 to 2023, and then 2023, 2024. As you can see, we have our teacher fill rate currently is 77.7%, and our para fill rate is 33.7%. And while it's somewhat similar to last year, I do want to point out that we've had an increase in absences. So we are filling more absences, and this in part is because more positions have become allowed to request substitutes. So with that in mind, we have more absences. Yes, we had it blocked off a bit more last year. And this is from the end of March, but as of the 22nd of March, we had 195 in our substitute pool, and we had recruited 116 this year since 21st of August. That's now gone up to 139. But the whole total is still 195? Yeah, around that, yeah. And we have sort of a month-to-month breakdown with the teacher fill rate. So some months we've had a stronger rate of like 85, 81. I find typically this is when we have absences put in long in advance. So for some of those, the stronger months, we had district-wide training events like PBIS training, and I was told maybe 3-4 weeks in advance, and I was able to fill those quite easily. The biggest challenge is the same-day absences, because we're competing with the surrounding districts, and most substitutes are registered with several districts. But as I said, when the absences are put in advance, we do pretty well. And this shows our year-over-year trend line. We are currently the blue line. Last year was the orange, and the previous year before Teachers on Call was the gray. Obviously, we were at the end of COVID, so I do want to point that out. But I do think we've obviously made some improvements. while we are around the same with the fill rate, if you look at, as I said, the number of filled positions, we are filling more, as you can see in the bottom graph. And we move on to paraprofessionals. This continues to be a bit of a challenge, paraprofessionals. It seems that the type of people that sign up for paraprofessional work are not accepting full-time work. So it may be a few days here and there. And people who are registered as teachers and paraprofessionals rarely take the paraprofessional roles because of the difference in pay rate. But other than that, we've been able to fill some long-term positions quite successfully. And it's about the same, well, our fill rate is lower this year, but we are filling more. The actual number of filled positions is higher this year. And this is a breakdown school by school. So most of the schools, we've seen an increase in fill rate, notably Lakewood, which was a challenge last year because of their, well, where they're located. So this year we adopted a strategy where, at least if I saw an absence that was quite close to the start time, I would put an incentive. So I have like a limited kind of incentive fund from Teachers on Call, and I can assign gift cards. So I was assigning, you know, some gas cards, and I had some success there. And as a result, they seem to be doing pretty well with their fill rates. Also last year, we highlighted them, and I mean, it sounds silly, but dropped off little like candy bags with handwritten notes saying thank you for subbing with us. So if they got a new substitute, they give one of those candy bags, and apparently the substitutes were charmed, so it did pretty well. And it's similar with paraprofessionals. Most of them, we have an increase. I mean, there are a couple, let's see, maybe Homecroft not so great, but overall we are increasing fill rates from paraprofessionals, but it's kind of low, I guess. There still needs to be work done. And this is a breakdown of like absence lead time, so how many are inputted greater than 24 hours in advance, and then the breakdown of what the fill rates are when they're inputted 24 hours or more in advance, and then the number of absences, excluding sick days by lead time. What's the timing of this? Is over a year or a month? Sorry? The request by lead time. So that was from the start of the school year till the 22nd of March when we did our mid-year review. And these are the numbers from then as well. So the substitutes hired since 21st of August. We're at 139 now, and 175 substitutes worked, and then 195 active substitutes. And then that's by number of paras and teachers. Yes, that's correct.
I just wanted to point out a couple of things. As Melanie said, we are in our second year with Teachers on Call, and we did make some changes that probably have affected the para rates to some degree. Last year, to get recruitment as well as to get subs to come in, we did offer if a teacher came in as a para, they would get the teacher rate of pay. And as she mentioned, there were also some of our subs, like our interventionists and media specialists, that didn't get subs because we wanted to make sure that we had enough for the other classes, the core classes. We did change that this year, so there have been more subs called as a reason of that, and more of the teachers taking less para positions because we did put it back down to the regular rate to do that. Because although the para has a very important role in the classroom, we also know that we would rather have a teacher teach, if at all possible. So if they're going to pick something up, we wanted to make that change. So that could be where some of the reduction in the para numbers came this year.
Chair Lothel?
Can you remind us what our rate of pay is for our subs? I know there's a few levels, and our paras. What is our district paying?
So for a full day is 150. 155 for retirees, and 75 for a half day. So anything less than 4 hours is paid as a half day, anything over, so even if it's just marginally over, is a full day. And then paras are 16 an hour for regular para, and then 17.50 for special ed.
And in our meeting that we had in March where this data came forward, we did talk about that we are probably a little bit low, and since we have also negotiated those contracts, that we probably need to move them up a little bit just to be market comparable with other districts in the area. So we are looking at that for next school year.
So, and then I want to say, keep charming them, keep, those incentives that you said, the little bags of candy that seem to work. Because I really believe that one of the things I experienced with Teachers on Call, because I was a sub for you your first year with our district.
Oh, okay.
And so the emails, the support, the quick replies, the lesson plans, the tips for us, that would come on a fairly regular basis, I thought was a real advantage. It really made me appreciate that I was seen as a sub, and that
glad to hear that.
the materials, whether it was a holiday, email with some holiday ideas, if you're going to sub during those last days before holidays, would be, good. So I like the attention that our subs get from our work with Teachers on Call. My other question is, are we still, or maybe we never did, do we pay subs a different pay rate if they go to the schools that we determine are high need? So when we see that we list that in our job descriptions when we're hiring teachers, we'll say if we need a teacher at this school in our district, in red, you always say when you're hiring a teacher, it's a high need school. Do we do that with subs and increase their rate or not?
We don't have a different rate. I have been placing some incentives on some of the high needs schools, but it's hit or miss because sometimes they're not a good fit. And so we've had some subs go to a school like Myers Wilkins or Laura MacArthur, and the principal has communicated, hey, this substitute, they're not a good fit. So we sometimes run into those situations if they're not, and it's hard to vet for a day-to-day substitute, obviously. But yeah, we have run into some challenges where people don't want to go there, even with an incentive.
And my last question is just about paras, and is there, I feel like there's a perception within our para community or just within our school district community that I think paras certainly when they need to take a day, they do all the required paperwork. But do they necessarily request a sub? Because I think there are times when paras just know there's not enough, so they don't even expect to get a sub. But I don't know that because I didn't.
As far as I'm aware, they're requesting subs. I do see quite a few absences popping up, so I assume so. I don't know if some aren't putting it in. I wouldn't.
And our direction has been to the staff, the principal, as well as the clerical, that you should be putting in all of these, because we don't get accurate rates either. We can't look at the data if we don't know that they're supposed to be having a sub. We can't count that. And I think that was a question that we ran into the first year especially, because they didn't feel they were going to get any coverage, so they didn't put it in. We've ran into that a little bit in the high schools this year, where the half-day, full-day, they didn't need somebody for a half a day. They only needed them for an hour, and so rather than call out for a half-day sub, they'd fill it internally, which we know they're always going to have a need. So we're like, no, put it in for a half-day sub so you get a body, and we can redeploy where that person goes when that person comes back from an appointment. So there has been communication. There might still be those situations where they're not putting that in, but that has been clearly communicated that we want to make sure that they're putting those absences in.
Member Loeffler Kemp and then Superintendent Magus.
Great, thank you. Thank you for asking that question about pay, Jill. I was going to ask that question. You had mentioned about possible pay increases for subs. Is that for both paras as well as for teachers that you are looking at possible increases to be in line with around the region, I guess?
Yes, when we had our quarterly meeting, Melanie's, I don't know what her title is,
Client
but
director,
her client director, had kind of given us that information related to their surrounding, and their recommendation was that we look across the board at our subs and do the increases because we are a little bit low, especially on the paras, so we'd be looking at both to raise them up.
Okay, and then I had just a couple other questions. Melanie, are you housed in our offices?
Yes.
Okay, Cool, that's great. So people have a face to go with Teachers on Call and.
Yes, yes. You know, I invite substitutes to come in and I can set them up on their network access and everything, get to meet them, make them a cup of tea. So it's
Great,
nice.
wonderful. Just a couple other related questions is, you kind of touched on principals. I don't know if you would say they evaluate the subs, but how are subs evaluated to see if they're a good fit for subbing?
Well, oh, do you mean the application process?
No, once they're out
Once
in the
they're-
field, so to speak.
I mean, we do encourage feedback, and so we do go for feedback a lot. So it's very good to have the communication. I do have open communication with the clerical. That's usually who I communicate with most. So they'll say to me, hey, you know, this happened today, and they'll ask my advice usually, like, oh, it's not something we want to pursue. We don't want to, because we have an incident process where they can submit an incident form, and that goes through Kelly Compliance, so our parent company. And then the sub is kind of put on, sort of suspended for a couple of weeks, and then we investigate it. So principals and clerical will reach out to me to kind of get my advice on whether they want to submit an incident form, or it's something I can just sort of chat to the sub, or maybe, you know, dissuade them from subbing at a certain school.
Okay, and my last question, then I'll let other people, but do you, can teachers request specific subs?
They can, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Magus?
Just want to say that as we work on that third area of focus for our district of improving systems, our partnership with Teachers on Call, and especially the support we've received from you, Melanie, has been exceptional. The mid-year review is something that we worked on and really went deep with the data. We spent, I think it was well over an hour looking at this and looking at solutions. And so really thinking about how we continue to address when we need guest teachers, I think is really important for us. And I think that it's a trend and a challenge throughout the country. But I'm grateful to have a partner like you and like Teachers on Call. And thanks to you as well, Teresa, for helping manage that.
Member Mikesell?
Thank you for all this information. I recognize that Teachers on Call has been part of the district now since, was it 2022 they came? Teresa, are you able to give a brief overview of how our substitute teaching spots in paraprofessional spots fill rate has changed since like before the pandemic, before we had Teachers on Call?
So admittedly, the data prior was not great, but my understanding, and we had just a short time in my time here and coming off of COVID, so there was a lot of different absences and the fill rates weren't great. But I think it definitely has improved, and the customer service piece of it, you know, HR used to manage this, and they used to try to make contact to staff, and as we did different things within that HR space, there was less detail and less time to spend on calling out a sub. And so it actually got pushed out a lot to the buildings and to the clericals and the principals, and they had their folks that they knew and they'd call, and that's great because they had those connections, but it was a burden because there just wasn't enough staff time to do it and do it well. So I think that's where Teachers on Call has really come in. They have their own pool. We transitioned when we first came with them. Subs that we had in our system, we offered transition incentives for them to move on to Teachers on Call so that they would also have that opportunity to continue subbing with the district. But it definitely has made a difference. I think there's a lot more outreach to the principals and to the buildings. And I've heard that from principals. They were a little skeptical at first, as anyone would be on a change like that. But from an overall organization, I think it's been a welcome and has improved our sub rates by far.
Great, good to know, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Up next, another audible. Coming up is our coordinator for early childhood is family education. I have early childhood family education. Jen Jarrows.
Hello, thank you for having me here today. I can say that Teachers on Call has helped ECFE get subs like incredibly. We used to never get any subs, and now we get subs quite often, so it's incredible. So thanks for having me here. I wanted to just be here tonight because I was was thinking earlier in the day, I've been in the district for 10 years as the ECFE coordinator. And 10 years ago, we were celebrating 40 years of ECFE in Minnesota. And now we're celebrating 50 years of ECFE since the legislature passed funding to do have some pilot programs. And Duluth Public Schools started ECFE in 1979. So we're having a big celebration on May 18th. I have some flyers I would love for you to take and post around and share with your neighbors and friends and families, but we're having a fun celebration. I wanted to share about ECFE just because I haven't been to the board it's been a few years since, I think, before COVID. I know y'all have had a lot going on, and so we've just continued to do the good work and fly under the radar, but I also want to share about ECFE just because it's a really important program. It's the first introduction for families in the Duluth Public Schools, and so I wanted to give you a little bit of context. You can read our mission, but it's really about strengthening families. All families are welcome in ECFE. And in ECFE, we recognize that parents are a child's first and most important teacher. And I'll say that again later because it's really important to parents. The parent piece is number one. Just to give you some context about where we fit in the Duluth Public Schools and in public schools across the state, it's fairly uniform. But you can see that the Duluth Public Schools has a rich history of early childhood programming, and along with early childhood special education, Help Me Grow, screening, Duluth Preschool, but I'm representing early childhood family education, which really focuses on parents and parenting education. Our funding, we are under the Community Education and Services umbrella. We get state aid, we get levy money. I try to nab on to grant funding when I can. The Northland Foundation recognizes early childhood family education as a strong partner. When they go to the state and get some funds, they come back to the region and say, like, this is really the work you do, we'll give you some money for it. Okay, thanks. So we've really partnered with the Northland Foundation a lot. They're good friends of us, and they have always recognized, we do a lot of home visiting, and they've always recognized that one child, one family, one parent at a time is good enough in their mind as far as data and numbers, and I agree. If we can change the life of one parent, of one child, we will. Our formula is based on the census, so we have just over 5,000 children in our Duluth Public Schools from birth to pre-kindergarten, so that's a lot of children to get eyes on. We offer a sliding fee scale, and we are mandated. We cannot turn anybody away due to inability to pay. So even if we don't ask even for proof, we just ask people to, on their honor, kind of click what they can afford, and sometimes they'll just call and say, like, we can't make this payment, and we say, it's okay, what can you pay, or don't worry about it, we want you to come. We never want income to be a barrier. So our leaders are, Jeremy Rupp is my direct supervisor, and then there's me, and I don't know what I was gonna say, I don't know what that was. So again, I showed this slide earlier, but I added our statute, just a couple of points. There's a lot more points than just these two, but the purpose is to provide parenting education to support children's learning and development. And then we also must appoint an advisory council. So we do have an advisory council from reps from all of our sites across the city. Again, we are part of community education programming, so I just wanted to list out that we are under both the youth programming piece as well as the adult programming piece. So we really tackle both sides of the spectrum. Right now, our typical classes, I look at our programming in two ways. I look at our typical classes at sites, and then I also look at outreach and partnerships. So this is going to be about our typical classes at sites first, and then I'll talk about partnerships in a little bit. So we're at 4 sites, Piedmont Washington Center, which isn't a school site, but it's a city, it's a good spot in the city to serve the Central Hillside. Lester Park, and then Stowe Elementary. And then we also have the Circle of Security Parenting we offer at Myers-Wilkins and Lester Park and at Piedmont as well. So those are some other pieces that we're trying to offer, and that is not just for families of small children, it's for anybody who cares for children. We often have staff come to the Circle of Security Parenting. We have community members, it's a good relationship-based curriculum, the Circle. I think about the Circle about even my husband, like, what does he need from me? Because we're each other, we're the hands for each other. So what do you need? Are you on the top, are you on the bottom? It's a really fascinating structure to think about. Very much attachment theory based. So the typical components of a class is we have parent-child time. This circle actually kind of reminds me of ECFE. You know, we sit in a circle on the rug and we sing some songs and do finger plays, and really what we're doing is modeling for parents, like, these are some songs you can sing, these are some stories you can read, and this is how we're modeling, because a lot of parents are like, I'm not sure how to read a story to my child, and so they really get a good model from the teachers and from each other. But we have activities in the classroom with all the components of domains of learning, and then we separate, and parents go into another class while the children play with a licensed early childhood teacher. The parents go into the parent room with a licensed parent educator, which, again, Minnesota is special. We are the only state that licenses parent educators as teachers. And other states have parenting education, maybe through the county, maybe through faith-based organizations, but Minnesota really is it for school districts licensing teachers. Our teachers are on the pay scale too with our K-12 staff, and so we in Duluth really do attract really phenomenal staff here. So that's something that I think that we should really be proud of. Let's see, what else can I tell you? The curriculum, okay. You're speeding me along here. Yeah, would you go back? I can't remember. Yeah, well, I know, I'm adding a lot of pieces. So it's once a week, they come for an hour and a half. We have daytime and evening classes, so a lot of our teachers work 10, 12-hour days, and then they have a Friday off. So it's irregular scheduling, but it does work out. Yeah, licensed staff, our paras are phenomenal. Ding. So our curriculum, Minnesota has a parent education core curriculum framework. The second edition has just been published. It really is a framework that teachers go off of to make sure that they're covering all of the domains of education for young children, but the parent educators also very much, with each group that they have, develop the curriculum based on what the needs are of that particular group. So it's very flexible and bendy, but also has structure. It's aligned with our early childhood indicators of progress, which are also then aligned with K-12 standards. All of our staff are trained in the Circle of Security Parenting. So again, like I had said, it's a secure attachment. Secure attachment sets the foundation for children. And I always I feel like often ECFE is misunderstood or not understood. And I always thought if people understood a secure attachment, then they would understand ECFE, because that's really what we're teaching. We really teach what that means, what a parent's role is. When a person becomes a parent, they're still somebody who's developing and learning and changing, and we recognize that. So we help them through that new role and to really see what their job is as a parent. Other research-based resources, what we really also try to do is make sure that parents are aware of what other resources there are in the community, the county. There are a lot of really great agencies that do a lot of really great work with families in our community, but sometimes it's hard to know who qualifies for what. should I go there? I knocked on the door, nobody, so we try to do a lot of gentle handoffs with others across the community. Thank you. That's just showing the different domains of that parent education core curriculum framework I wanted to include. And y'all can look at the slides later for pleasurable reading as well. So here are our partnerships. We know that, well, there's not a lot of space in our schools, so often we don't have, there isn't a spot for us in all of our elementary schools, which would be ideal, and I would love it if we could, but we know that that's not the case at this point. So, and we also know that not all families want to necessarily come to a school, or they're not thinking about school yet because their child is one, or a baby, so they're not really thinking about school. So we look at who else in the community is working with young children. We start, though, in the hospitals. So we have 2 parent educators. One goes to Essentia 2 days a week, one goes to St. Luke's 3 days a week, and they knock on the doors of these rooms with these hours-old babies and say, I'm from Duluth Public Schools, ECFE, and so they just, welcome to school, you know, you're learners and we're learners, and let's do this together. So they talk about attachment, and they talk about just some little pieces of what to expect when you take your baby home. And then also, we have a free 6-week class for parents and newborns to come right away while you're not going back to work. Come and get a taste of ECFE and get to be part of a group and meet other parents who are in the same boat. Moms and dads come, grandmas come, everybody comes. So it's a really exciting time. Talk about start early,
Try
exactly.
and start early. Member Sadowski.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for your work, and just wanted to comment that I work with one of these partnering agencies, and seeing single parents, a lot of them young, over the years, just getting to know them, and they just really appreciate the ECFE. And I see them learning about secure attachments through ECFE. And also, a lot of the youth that I've worked with have reflected on just feeling really isolated as a single parent. And ECFE gave them an opportunity to connect with other parents just in a safe environment. So I just wanted to thank you for that and share those reflections. And then I just had a quick question about the Washington Center.
Yeah.
Is that related to families in transitions? Is that specifically for
So the families
in transition?
Families in transition are their Head Start. So that's early Head Start.
Okay,
So
got
we sometimes share the staff, but that's
it.
a Head Start funded program.
Okay.
We also have ECFE classrooms and programs at the Washington Center too. So, yeah.
Perfect, thanks.
Yep. Home visits, all of our staff do home visits. One really interesting thing is that we have one parent educator that goes to NERC, so Northeast Regions Correction Center, and works with incarcerated fathers. So her work, she's got stories. Her work is very dynamic and interesting. Salvation Army is something that we started this year, a partnership. So Jen Sundal, who is fit, but she also works for ECFE, works in tandem with their staff to provide a Circle of Security parenting group with them, and then offers home visits with them as well. And the YWCA will be a new partnership next year. And we have lots of partnerships, but we are often looking for where else are families gathered, where we could bring some information, or come one night or come for several nights to talk and share some parenting information. So new next year, which is incredibly exciting, I have a parent educator named Megan Kane who has been working this year with pregnant and parenting teens. She's been making connections and having about 2 events each month. She has them either at Piedmont Elementary or in partnership with the Duluth Children's Museum. She'll invite teens and their partners, or maybe a parent or another supporter, to come and they get to engage in the environment, play with their children, but also meet each other, like you said. It's isolating to be a high school student with a child. And maybe they get to come to school, maybe they don't. Every circumstance is different, but they can all come there and have lots of things in common. One thing is that they love their child. And so we're really excited that she's been able to create such strong relationships. She's got a long list of kids, but about 6 to 10 have been consistent throughout the year. The one thing that she heard is that if this had grad credit attached to it, we'd come. And so next year, through the ALC, we are going to be able to add a half credit per semester for them to basically come to ECFE, also online, so it's hybrid, and get to have that credit toward graduation. So we're thrilled that that is coming to fruition. A lot of work and dreams have been in the works for that ever since I've been here. We've been wanting to do that. And then next year we're adding, we know that ECSEs, children with special needs, there seems to be a lack of places for children to get their early childhood special ed services in the district or in the community. And so I just said, how can we partner? How can we provide at least some spots? So we're having an ECFE, ECSE collaboration. So it's basically an ECFE class. All of the children are on an IEP. The parents, it's a required component. The parents can come too. And in all of our classes, we allow ECSE students or children on IEPs to come, but it's different. It's different when you're with a group of families and my child's developing differently. It just feels different. So this way they'll get to kind of come and be together and have that one piece in common. Well, several pieces in common, actually. And just lastly, join us. Join us on May 18th for our super exciting day up at Chester Creek. We have Terrence Smith coming, so there's going to be folk dancing, and he'll bring his maypoles and lots of different community agencies, so there'll be lots of resources. We've got a couple of food trucks coming. Our Parent Advisory Council, who does a little bit of fundraising, is going to be providing free mac and cheese for every child that day through one of the food trucks, so that nobody feels like they can't have any, so everybody gets mac and cheese. And it's just going to be a really fun day, and it's going to be beautiful weather. And we know parking up there can be kind of a trick, so we have shuttles running from UMD parking lot to make sure families can get back and forth to the event. Yeah, so, and just feel free to reach out to me at any point if you're thinking about how we can serve families differently. But parent engagement starts right away in our public schools. And so we just would love to look for more ways to be able to be at all of our elementary schools. That really is best practice. But I know there's a lot of challenges and there's a lot of competing needs. So,
Member Meixel?
Yeah.
Thank you for all this. I was not an ECFE parent when my youngest son was born, but I've been able to teach at some of the classes over the years. And so I've seen it in action and just know how valuable that is. I know one of the things that we focus on in our district is our kindergarten readiness for our little kids.
Yeah.
And so I was curious, how many children, students, families does ECFE serve like at this time, and is that going up, going down?
Yep, good question. So right now we have at our 4 sites, those typical sites, we have over 280 families joining us for classes. So that doesn't count the partnerships that we have, which we don't have the best data on because the state is looking at data differently, so we've kind of let that go. But now we know we need to bring that back. But about 280, which is about on par with pre-COVID numbers. We, of course, took a pretty huge dip during COVID because families weren't coming out. So, but that just reminded me of how different families are right now too, because they have been at home by themselves for this past several years. And so when we do separate, it's taking longer. So we are about into November by the time the teachers are feeling like, whew, that went okay, because our families have not been apart from each other. Yeah, it's fascinating.
Member Sadowski, your light is still on. I'm just making sure that you wanted, another question, then I'll come to
Yeah.
Member Loeffler-Kemp after that.
Yeah,
and then
I do have a,
Superintendent.
hopefully, just in a nutshell, how have you seen your ECFE program change over the years to adapt to working families, to parents that are working or a single person that's working, and to kind of be there for those families? Or what are the challenges around that, maybe?
Yeah, there are a lot of challenges. Our evening classes always fill up like that. And so having enough staff that want to work or have the ability to work in the evenings, because we have our own families, and then spaces. But one thing we also keep thinking about is how do we partner with some of the businesses to have, a 20-minute lunch talk about parenting. I've seen that regionally be successful in some places or not successful in others. But yeah, addressing working families is tough, but we take pride in our evening classes. Yeah. Yeah, appreciate it.
Member Loeffler-Kemp?
Yeah, so much I could say, but because I was an ECFE parent, and I still have my T-shirt from the 20th anniversary celebration, my favorite long sleeves T-shirt. But I'll wear it on the 18th. But the partnership, the really cool thing, and I guess, challenge all of us to share this information. But the growth of ECFE from what it was back in my day to all these different partnerships, and some you had, but many you hadn't. And I know I get questions, and I'm around a lot of young families of what do we offer as a district with early childhood, and all of these different ways just ECFE is reaching out is amazing. And so, kudos to your staff for willing to be so flexible in so many different ways. And I just really kind of challenge each of us to share this information with as many people as we can, get them to that celebration on the 18th to meet some of the staff. And thank you for the great work. ECFE made me who I was as a parent, so thank you.
Thank you.
Superintendent Magus?
Thank you. I just want to say as well, reiterate the thanks that I hear. I was also at a Lions Club meeting today, and they were talking about what great work you do. And they actually have a vision screening device that they wanted to donate to the ECFE program. And I wanted to make sure that I shared that with you, but they presented it to me at this kind of unexpected little ceremony at the end of my presentation, and they said, this is going to, I don't have it yet, but they wanted to connect with you, and I just think it was very reflective of how highly regarded ECFE is in the community and how important it is for us as well. We talk about how Duluth Public Schools, basically, with the way that we serve people, we serve them from cradle to late life, let's just say.
Jeremy says birth to earth, right? Yeah, birth to earth. Yeah, it's true. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
I know. Again, we start early in Duluth, and so I second what Member Loeffler-Kemp said. It is really important that we continue to just promote and share all the good things that we offer in the district, and that's why I'm really pleased. Thank you, Jen, for all of your work with ECFE and your team, so thank you. Next up, we have none other than Angie Frank, who is our coordinator for adult Duluth Adult Education.
Okay, whoop, whoop. Anyone need a break? Drink water, a lap around? Okay. Thank you for being here and sticking it out to listen to me. And also on a bigger thank you for your service and your commitment to the school board and all of the time you dedicate and all for our young people, and I guess in my case, our older people too. I'm here, or I was here a couple years ago when I was brand new to this position to introduce myself and refresh the programs that we offer. And so I'm here tonight to kind of give you an update on, hey, what have we been doing the last couple years? And so just a reminder, most people think of us as the place people go when they didn't graduate high school, and that's true. That's one of our programs. We offer GEDs, and we also offer credit recovery. We also have 6 other programs. And so we teach English to English language learners. We also have a core skills program, and that's meant for students whose reading, writing, math levels are below a 6th grade level, and that's kind of impacting their daily functioning, right? We lump computer skills into our core skills program now because we see computer skills as really a core skill that people need to be successful in our society. We also have a career path program that exists through partnerships in the community with Career Force, SOAR, Lake Superior College, and now Fond du Lac is joining us this fall on a grant that we're working on. And then we have a college prep program at Lake Superior College, which is a phenomenal program because it helps students make sure they're ready for college before they take on those dreaded student loans, right? And then we don't really advertise this because you don't really want to recruit for this, but we do have a program at St. Louis County Jail. And so we offer services there for students as well. All right, so, yeah.
Are these new programs since you took over 2 years ago, or they're programs that are still being served?
Yep, I think that I've helped define the program hats, but yeah, we've kind of always done all this stuff. So in the interest of time, I don't want to read slides to you. So I'm going to go through things quickly, and please just jot down some notes, and anything that piques your interest or you have questions on, let's go back and look at that in more detail. But I want to be efficient and not share stuff with you or talk too much about things that you already know or you don't want to know. So this is a snapshot of our demographics, who we're currently serving. And we can just go on to the next slide. One of my goals was to really understand, I think in my interview with John and Anthony, I kept saying, I'm data-driven, I want to look at the data to know what to do and how to grow this program and how to serve students. And I took on my job and there was no data. And so in the last 2 years, I've worked with our database to be able to craft the kind of data that I wanted, as well as implementing student surveys to get the feedback from student experience as well. And so this year we've successfully implemented our pre-surveys to students. So we have given over 500 students surveys and gotten a sense of what do they want to feel when they're at DAE. And so that word cloud gives you some of their top choices. And then our post-survey, after at least 40 hours with us, how have you felt at DAE? And based on that word cloud, we're doing a pretty good job, but I do have a disclaimer. When you start something new, you don't do it perfect, right? So we are still working on how to get those post-surveys answered by as many students as possible. So that's representative of about 26 students. So we still have some work to do in collecting that post-survey data. And then our next slides are also based on that 26 student response. But I did want to share them with you because I pulled out some narrative comments that I thought were powerful, as well as just to see the more blue, the better. So we can kind of breeze through these pretty quickly. And you can take a look at the comments at your leisure. And I guess maybe I like student stories, so maybe I'll just take a minute to share a couple student stories about experiences and what happened this week, actually. So a student experience in our GED program. We had a student come in a few weeks ago. I want to get my GED. Okay, great. He worked with the teacher. The teacher saw that he was ready academically. It took some confidence building and encouragement to actually sign up and take the test. And then he took the test, he passed, he took the next one, passed, took it, passed. And just a couple days ago, passed the last one. We all ran down the hall screaming. And that was a really straightforward, quick, easy plan, right? On the other end of the spectrum, before I was in this position, I taught for 13 years at the St. Louis County Jail. I met a young woman there, and she was such a bright presence in that jail and in the community of learners that we had there. And she struggled. She struggled with trauma. She struggled with addictions. She had a long path of healing. I delighted when she showed up at the Arvig building just a couple years ago and said, okay, can I do this? And our teachers got her on a plan. She was working toward her adult diploma. And this week she came and picked it up. And so, we can fast track students, and then we can work with students for years and years in supporting them in so many ways, not just academically, to reach the goals that they have. All right, so numbers are always better with a few stories. Okay, so I've really been working on COVID recovery the last couple years. Our COVID decimated our numbers. You can see at the lowest point, we were 425 students. That was down from about 1,300, 1,200. And the move from historic Old Central also was really difficult to get students back or to find us. When I first started, I would walk down our hallway, and there's a classroom with a window in the interior hallway, and I would look and I'd be like, are there any students? Oh, shoot. Are there any students yet? Oh, shoot. Oh my God, there's one student, right? And so now when I walk down that hall and I look in the classroom, there is a robust group of students learning English in this beautiful community. And so it's really nice to see our numbers again up over 1,000. I will point out our program year ends at the end of April. And so the data for this year isn't complete. I imagine we'll see a growth in the number of students as well as in the number of contact hours. So contact hours rule our world in adult education because that's how we're funded. Yeah, you can click to the finance side.
Can I ask a quick question about that? Because I know there used to be a requirement for GED students to complete a certain number of hours before they got their GED. And then I heard you just say you fast-tracked a student, so maybe they didn't, it was like 25 hours of study time before they could even take the test. And I know just from some of the work that I've done that some of those students just, they weren't going to do that because they knew they were ready. Yeah. So how does that, and then I know that it impacts your funding, so that is so challenging. It's a challenge, and can you speak to if you're still, those challenges, I guess? Or?
I think our job is to serve the students in the best way possible. And I think our job is to get them their GED or diploma as efficiently as possible. So we have let go of those requirements. I think there used to be like 40-hour requirement, or now we we have some shortcuts. There's different ways, like students can kind of earn some hours. So we try to be efficient with it in only giving them what's going to help them prepare for the test, but also try to balance how we're measured by the state as well. So.
Yeah, thank you for your work in that. That's a tricky thing to juggle. And then I didn't mean to distract you from your presentation,
okay.
but that post-survey data, I feel your pain on that. That's really challenging, so thanks for your work trying to get those. But those post-surveys are really hard to get.
Yeah.
So.
I've got some ideas. I think we'll increase that rate next year. All right, so let's see. Finances, contact hours rule the world. Our funding comes from federal aid as well as state aid, and their funding formulas rely heavily, heavily, heavily on contact hours. I'm super excited. We have been a little bit below, or a little bit, concerningly a little bit below the state average of contact hour growth. And in order to have equal funding from year to year, we really have to match the state funding average or state growth average. Well, state average just went down and we went up. So we're right where we need to be. So I'm really grateful for that. Oh, you can stay back there because the federal and state funds really cover all of our programming costs. The district is not paying for any of the adult education programming that's going on, but the district does support us with building costs and infrastructure. Thank you, thank you, thank you. If I was paying rent at the RVIG, I would have to reduce my budget by 25%, which would greatly reduce my ability to serve students. So I'm very grateful for that. And going on to the next slide, I'm super, super excited about the DNT. Oh my gosh. If I had to go through picking a career again, it's likely I would have become an architect. So I had so much fun working with Chris and Brian on designing a space that really met the needs of the students and flowed for how we do our work. Our staff met and talked about what kind of spaces they wanted and they needed and where we were going to prioritize things. And so this was really a huge collaborative project to put together kind of this ideal space for us. So thank you. And I think I'll skip to the third. I always do this. I put like the thing I want to say first, last, which is it really makes us feel like an integral part of Duluth Public Schools. I think historically, it was pretty easy to think of us as a stepchild. Like we were kind of on the outer rings. And I've really tried to bring us into the folds of the district because I think it benefits us and I think it really could benefit the district as well. I've got a lot of brainstorms about how, like, I guess indirectly, we help kind of pre-K through 12 students by helping parents, right? When caregivers do better, kids do better. And so we're indirectly supporting in that way. But I do see a lot of ways forward where we could potentially directly impact some things and some goals in the pre-K 12 system. Just to throw some of my brainstorms out there, and I haven't talked about this with any other leaders, so I hope I'm not whatever, but here's my brainstorms. But our funding, we can use that for career development. And I know the district struggles with filling positions. We do partner right now with a paraprofessional program. We can train paraprofessionals and help get them qualified for the position. But that could expand into food service, custodial, computer skills for clerical. That could be upskilling current employees. There's a lot of ways I think adult ed could support the workforce within the school district, as well as taking a look at the transition when students leave high school. We could get them started on one of our career paths, or we could get them started in our college prep program, and trying to make a more direct link with high schools, high school counselors, about how we bridge that for the students who would benefit from that. I like thinking creatively and brainstorming ideas, so I've got a few more, but we'll move on. I guess I'll just say one thing. I wanted to share, Anthony might remember this. I came into his office one day and I brought a bunch of Post-it notes. So look at these. And every student who comes in, we ask them, how do you feel about coming back to school? And they write on the Post-it note. And then we give them another Post-it note and we say, how are you going to feel when you accomplish what you came here to do? And then they answer that. Well, I brought the stack of how do you feel about coming back to school? And you look at them all, and it's nervous, anxious, nervous, scared, anxious, excited, but really like there's this theme. And most of our students coming to us, it takes so much courage for them to walk through that door, because they either have trauma specifically related to their educational experience, trauma outside of their educational experience in their life, or just shame that they didn't do what society told them they were supposed to do. And so this idea of creating such a welcoming space for students to support them, make them feel welcome, make them feel like adults, make them feel seen and heard by the school district, that is just huge. And that's what I see happening here at the DNT, and I'm just really excited for that. The next slide is our growing pains right now. We are kind of outgrowing our current RVIG space, and we're shuffling a lot of things around to create learning spaces for students. But I've got such phenomenal teachers and staff, like, we always make it work. All right, our program growth this year, this is not something that I could measure past last year because our database didn't allow for this kind of segmentation. But we are seeing a lot of growth in some areas. Our career path is not really applicable because it's grant funded and when those cycles down, so I didn't put the data there for that. Our college prep program from last year to this year saw a 15% decline, and our GED and diploma program saw a 50% decline. So I want to talk a little bit about what that means. So we can skip, I think, a bunch of slides here, Patty. This is just the core data I thought if you might be interested, and it also shares who our partners are. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Okay, that one. Oh, one back. Okay, so addressing the college prep program decline, I'm not really concerned about that. We see this cycle like in the calendar year when finals happen the first week in December, that it's cyclical, that happens. That being said, we also did a pilot program for online asynchronous learning and had huge interest in that. And so this fall we'll be adding 2 online asynchronous classes, one in reading and writing and one in math. And so I would imagine we'll see some growth in the program because of that. And then on the Minnesota state level, since we partner with Lake Superior College, they are rolling out some new expectations and requirements in the developmental education courses, which we partner with. So we're going to see a lot of changes. I can't really predict what that's going to be like, but I do know we have a phenomenal relationship with Lake Superior College as well as the Dev Ed department, and so I see that being a space that we're also going to grow. The GED diploma decline, it's not really that bad. That 50% decline is in in-person students. And we've seen so many students move to distance learning platforms where we saw a 35% increase in that category. Unfortunately, I can't segment out the data to know exactly who's GED students and who are other students. So I think that 50% decline is not completely accurate. That being said, there's also some contributing factors, like when it's easy to get a job without a diploma. There's not a lot of people trying to get a diploma, and we seem to be in that space right now. And also, we had to replace our GED teacher, so we brought a new teacher on board this year, and as you all probably know, the first year a teacher is doing their gig, there's a lot of learning. And so I feel like she's got her feet under her now, and next year there's going to be, again, a lot more growth happening. But what I really am excited to talk about is the next slide, which, that's all the stuff we're doing to improve. We can revisit that. But this slide, back one. My top priority in the next year to 5 years to 7, however long it takes. We know the graduation rates of students of color from the district are poor. And so we know there are many people in our community who left Duluth Public Schools without that diploma. And I want to make sure that we're reaching out to those individuals, to communities, and making sure that we offer programs that they can catch up, right? They can get that credential. And so I'll be putting a lot of energy in the next few years to building a really robust program that is accessible, comfortable, and attainable, especially for people in the BIPOC community. And I've got a lot of ideas about how we're going to do that. All right. Graduation data. Again, we aren't finished with our school year yet this year, and May is kind of, or April. There's going to be a push or a flurry. I think we'll see those numbers kind of jump once we get all the data put in. But I do like to also keep track of the number of students of color who are graduating and making sure that that number is in the same ballpark as the number of students of color we're serving. We don't really have graduating classes in the same way that the K-12 system does, so that's one way I try to check that we are serving the students of color as best as we can. And then the next slide is outside of diplomas and GEDs, we are required to test every student when they come in, no matter what program that they're coming into. And once they hit a certain time with us, we have to post-test them. And that's what this is. We call them our MSGs, when students receive a level gain on one of those pre or post-tests. And the state target is to hit 28%, and I'm happy to see most of our targets are above that point. But I am keeping an eye. The 2 or more races category and Asian category are lower. And so that's just something I'll keep an eye on and keep watching and figuring out how we can bring those up. We did a lot in the last 2 years to try to support students. So free childcare, partnership with the YMCA, free transportation, Chromebook checkout. We have Wednesday evening classes and registration. We grew our volunteer program from 2 volunteers to 19. And then we are trying to create more a sense of community at DAE. So some of you have made it to our student success celebrations. That's wonderful. And so we're working on kind of bringing students together, because sometimes as an adult, it can feel pretty isolating, I think. Oh, and there's our student success celebration. And I guess the last quote came from a student, and they said, "You change lives daily." And I think myself and all of our staff at DAE believe that to our core because we see it again and again and again. That students come to us when they want to accomplish something, and we will serve them by whatever means necessary to get them to the finish line they want to get to. And it changes people's worlds, so. How'd I do on time? Was I 10 minutes?
Oh, 10 minutes. Awesome. I'll kick us off by saying thank you, Angie. 2 years ago, I know we have new board members, and the board may not remember that when we brought Angie on, one of the things that she did in probably, short order is start really thinking about a rebranding. So we don't say basic ed anymore. It's Duluth adult education, right? Because of lots of, again, stigma, just rebranding, just, saying basic ed is kind of like, how does that feel walking into a building to work on basic skills, right? Even though they're skills that they're going to be working on. So she's put a lot of time and energy, and you can hear it in her passion. You can hear that passion coming out and coming through. And I know she's working really hard, and I want to say publicly again, thank you for everything you're doing. And you and your team are doing wonderful things. And I loved attending this celebration because just having a chance to see the adults just be proud of their attainment of accomplishments or certificates or just making a goal that they put in front of them, it was really just encouraging. Again, another thing that we have to make sure we are promoting and championing and make sure this community really knows that we are offering a lot of things to this community from our earliest learners to adults. And so just thank you, Angie. So let's take some questions, unless they've already been asked.
Just thank you too for the monthly newsletter that just came out today.
Oh,
And does that get pushed out into I think it gets pushed out into our ISD weekly update? And do you push it out to just our ISD employees, or is this?
Our
Where does this go?
newsletter is opt-in. So if you're not getting it, you can go to our website and sign up to get it. So we don't push it out anywhere. Thanks for opting in.
Superintendent Magus?
I too just want to say thank you. Adult education is very, very important. It's important for our school district. It's part of our vision. It's how I started in education, teaching GED and ESL classes. And I can't say enough good things about what you do and what you have done to rebrand and recast this as just a important support to our district. So thank you.
Thank you.
Just real quickly, also being at the success event or celebration, we're not only serving students in our district, there were people who are coming from far away to celebrate their successes of passing a level or finishing a course. So is it only, where do we serve in our Duluth?
Yeah, we serve Duluth, Hermantown, and Proctor. And then occasionally, our neighborhood consortium is AEOA, and they serve the rest of St. Louis County. Occasionally, right, we'll refer students between if that's a match. So we've got a really good relationship with them as well.
That's great.
Thank you. On
Any
that.
hard questions?
Thank you on that 10-minute concise presentation.
I think I got excited.
I know it. It's appreciated. Thank you. Thank you.
And we really love all the PowerPoints. I'm always impressed when we get our packet on Friday, the PowerPoints that you put together and just the information shared, and it's clear and concise. And so, I appreciate that I can go back and look at the slide deck as well, and we can watch it online. But all the presentations tonight were great. Yeah.
Any questions too?
Yeah, and I kid and joke. Come on up, Simone. I kid and joke, but at the same time, we always do try to make them concise. But we know once staff get here, there's so much happening, and so many programs and programming opportunities that we're providing our students, and it's hard to just put it in a little capsule. And so I appreciate the team for presenting. I appreciate the board for being patient. And speaking of being very patient, we have one more presentation by our very own
everybody.
Simone Zunic, the executive director.
Thank you.
Group here.
And
Angie, you are
and I'm
10 minutes?
Just so you have plenty of money.
Angie's been teaching me, right, Angie? We've had some great budget meetings. Yeah, oh, yeah. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me. Tonight, I am doing a preliminary budget review for FY '25. We're going to call this the first reading to the Committee of the Whole. And my first slide is our timeline. In April, we had individual board meetings occurred to review the 5-year analytics and the FY '25 preliminary budget. On April 25th, we had a board work session at Denfeld High School. I thought that was a great evening. Tonight, May 7th, Committee of the Whole, first reading. I skipped through May because we have HR Finance and then the school board meeting, but I won't be presenting anything at that time. Hoping we get some maybe formula updates this month. May, sometimes they like to wait till the end of May. But on June 11th, I will present the HR Business Services, to the HR Business Services, a second reading. But on June 13th, I will do a second reading to the Committee of the Whole, including categorical aid breakdown and final basic formula aid. So what I have tonight for you, these 9 slides, I will expand it like I did the one last year too, which I think was 68 pages long, but I'll try not to make it that long. And on June 18th is our regular board meeting, and that is when I will come to and ask for the adoption of our FY '25 budget. In July of '24, we will be presenting and working on a guiding change document with timeline dates to address the FY '26 budget reductions. So we will start setting up those timelines and bringing it to you in July. Between now and then, we're looking possibly for smaller group meetings if requested. So I think we should do it. I like them. So, and I did a quick summary, what overview and definitions. The general fund, of course, includes the general fund, transportation, operating capital. We call those funds 1, 3, and 5. Within those general and operating capital funds, we do have revenues that are restricted or are reserved, but we call them restricted funds. Additional funds include the food service fund, Fund 2, community service, Fund 4, construction fund is 6, debt service is 7, trust fund is 8, and internal service fund is 20. The process for general fund revenue budgeting will include projecting and analyzing current federal, state, and local revenues, along with forecasting legislative or local district changes to revenues. Do you have any questions? Okay. And in summary, for FY '25, right now, the revenue has increased slightly as far as the basic formula. It's only going up to 2%, and I'm hoping we get some messaging that we'll get some inflation, that anything will help. 1% equals about $620,000. The basic formula allowance is based on 2% over FY '24, and this year we received 4%. Expenses have increased due to the lack of ESSER funding, which sunsets on June 30th. And increased costs associated with salaries, benefits, and operations. That is just normal working business. And overall, the '25 budget will be balanced using assigned fund balance and internal operational budget adjustments. Okay? The '25 revenue projections are general education aid. What I did, I gave you the FY '24 and the FY '25. When I do my big presentation, I'll do pie charts, and so you guys like to see that. So right now, that 2% dollar change equals about 1.3 million. Special education aid, we're looking at potentially 1.3 million in an increase in aid. Now, that property tax levy, it shows 5.7 million. But if you go down further under other revenue, it's kind of italicized there. It says debt service. That 4.4 million is embedded in that 5.7. I just wanted to show you, by answering question number 1, our levy was able to increase. So that 5.7 includes that 4.4 million on debt service. Our federal funds, there is your COVID. It's reducing by 9.6 million. Non-federal grants, I don't anticipate any change there. Other funded programs went from 8.4 to 8.8, roughly increasing by 424,000. And other revenue is a $21,000 difference. A debt service, as I said, is embedded in the property tax levy. Food service, I'm anticipating a change of maybe $100,000. Food service is still out there. We know we will get another 2 years of free lunches, but we are unsure what's going to happen after that. So I'm actually not anticipating any big change in food service right now. And community education, basically the same. To the right, overall, the revenue is lower due to the loss of our ESSER funding. We do have increased funding due to property tax levy and the passing of question 1 on the November 23 ballot. Special education aid has increased due to cross-subsidy aid. That we are getting 44% instead of 40%, and so it went up. And then in 26 and 27, it will go up to 50%. And our debt service has an increase in revenue, as I explained, due to the passage of question 1. Any questions? Okay, let's go to our expenses now. This is the fun page. Our salaries and wages did not go down because we reduced the ESSER positions, but we also, I'm going to kind of jump to the right now. We also retained 28 ESSER positions, and we're implementing the middle school and high school model. So because of that and contract settlements, our expenses are actually increased by $500,000. Employee benefits, I don't anticipate a big change there. You know, when your salaries increase, so do your benefits because of our taxes and TRA and PERA. Purchase services, I'm anticipating $118,000 difference. Again, that is where we provide our transportation, our teachers on call, so all of those services fall under the purchase services category. And supplies and materials, this is where I was able to drop it by 4.3 million because we spent ESSER money here. So that's going away. We will have $4 million less in supply money, so that's a big change. And our capital expenditures, you'll see a $3 million drop because of passage of question number 1. We were paying debt in our general fund, but now we moved it to our Fund 7 debt service levy, so that we don't get that much more money, but we were able to decrease the expenditures there. So that was a big help. It was a huge help to us.
So when you see that we anticipate then a 3.7 million bump, and does any of that then go to our supply and material budget to help them?
It does not.
Okay.
It does not. Good try. And I have a
Can you tell us
summary-
why not? Why doesn't it?
Because it's a different fund. We can't use the debt service money for supplies and materials. That comes out of our general fund, and it was being paid for out of our capital fund, Fund 5.
Superintendent Magus.
Sure, I just want to say that, just for the public, that we are going through this somewhat quickly, but we've also spent quite a bit of time in individual meetings. We spent multiple hours in our work session. So this is a conversation that we've had in great detail. And so this is meant as kind of a recapping summary of some of the things that we've had more conversation with in our open work session and other opportunities.
Member Sadowski?
Yeah, just kind of piggybacking off of what you just said, I was just gonna point out, like, some of our purchase services, we've learned in our other meetings, they're kind of a wash because of what we're saving in benefits and things like that. So
That's correct.
we do dig into a lot of the details and have dug into a lot of the details in some of our other meetings. So I just wanted to point that out specifically about that line item.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yes. And to your question, Member Lowfall, that the debt service is a Fund 7. All the other items above are Fund 1. So those are all general fund, and debt service is Fund 7. So we cannot commingle the funds. Okay, we will move on now to comparing revenue to expense. So this is the page that you can really, it captures all this information. So the first line, revenues, general fund, $130,317,920 is proposed FY25 budget. Now, if you go to the right, the expenditures in general fund, we are anticipating to be over 136 million. So you can see there's our difference, where I'm saying we're over budget by 6,444,000. Food service, again, I'm anticipating, I'm using the same number from this year. I have to see how all that will roll out with food service, but $6 million and revenue, and I'm anticipating a little bit more, 6,080,202, a difference of $80,202 because of contract settlements. You know, hourly wages and salaries have increased, and benefits. Community service, $8,585,000 in revenue. Our expenses, I'm showing expenses of $7,007,000. So I think to the good here of possibly $799,000. But that can change. And again, when I come to you with our revised budget, next spring, these numbers, if community service, if they're expensive, have really changed, I will change that number as well. Construction, I have to show it to you, but there is nothing there. That was this Fund 6, that was what built this building. We do have our LTFM bond in Fund 6, but that has already been recognized as far as revenue, and we have not really started to use that fund yet. We anticipate using it for some build-outs and whatnot going forward. So I will always show that to you on the expense side, but we have already recognized that bond. Debt service, here's our Fund 7. We anticipate getting $28,067,000 in revenue. We think our debt service is going to come in per Baird at $27,300 to the good of $673,000. Again, and I can't use that plus to offset the general fund. Right? The Fund 8 trust is that dental fund that the district has historically kept. We keep a fund there to help with any claims that we need to. Internal service is our retiree insurance. And our student activities, that's flat. That maintains itself, but I need to report that Fund 79 to you. So that is the 24-25 budget in a snapshot there. And one more slide, and then I will add a little bit more to this. So here is the ADM, our average daily membership data that we put together last fall. I've brought to you saying that we look like we're going to be anticipating 100 less students over the next 5 years. So you can see in 24, it was 79, 89, that was our budget number we used. The way it's falling through our projected enrollment, in 25, a potential of less than 134 students, then 98 and 26, and then so on and so forth. So we took an average of 100 less students per year. However, we did get our final numbers for the 22-23 school year, and they came in at 8,120. So I added back 75 students for next year. It's roughly 750,000. I'm exaggerating. It's probably 650,000 in revenue. So we'll see how that falls out. Our latest calculation that will be presented at the HR Business Services, I believe the current enrollment went down to 8,034. So we're gonna, but it can peak again. And then, of course, in a year, we'll get final numbers. So it takes a long time, and it's kind of a gamble a little bit on choosing the right number for ADMs because you have to base your budget on it. So it's probably best to be on the conservative side. So getting back to, and then I'll take more take any questions, and then, but getting back, Patty, would you mind? Yes, thank you. So our plan is to use our assigned fund balance to offset this 6 million for, but we are also going to look really hard at internal operational costs. We're just trying to be more mindful, closing the checkbook and not, just make day-to-day decisions that I don't care if it costs, if it's a reduction of $3,000, everything will add up. So we're really going to be mindful about that. And as my colleague in business services, Brett, says, it just means, because he was trying to understand this as well, and he said, so I can't go to Home Goods every Saturday, only once a month. I said, that's what you got. I said, I have to tell that to the board. I said, okay, that's how he looked at it. So, yeah, it's true, right? So, can I answer any questions?
Member Derek Eater.
I just want to reiterate Superintendent Magus's point that this is not something that the board looks at at a finite time, which is our budget, that we are continually looking at our budget in terms of not just 1 year, but 5-year projections. So while it looks like we are going to be operating at a deficit, that is a decision that we have made collectively, because built into this budget, which I think is great, having this presentation with also a bunch of those other presentations, is we've built in a middle school model. We've built in a 7-period day for the high school. We have settled not just 1 2-year contract with our Duluth Federation of Teachers, but we have 2 2-year, so we have 4-year contract, two 2-year contracts for 4 years. So we've known this is coming, and so we are going to do the fiscally responsible thing with the gift that our community gives us, which is their taxpayer money, is make sure that we are using it in the best way possible. But we are making a decision to revamp the Duluth Public Schools from all the way pre-K, all the way through. So I can't remember the exact number, but the middle school model and the high school is it 1.3? It's several $1 million we built in, correct?
2.5.
I was going to say 1.3. So $2.5 million of this budget was a conscious decision by this board and this community to change the way that we educate our middle schoolers and our high schoolers. So while it looks like we do have a deficit, and this is a decision, and because we have built up our fund balance, we can use that money in this time to pay for those changes. Now, we have another decision coming up as a community, which is our referendum vote coming up in May. And so we just want to make sure that our community, as taxpayers that fund the school, understand that these decisions we're making are putting students at the center to get the best we can do with our money and educate as many kids as possible. So thank you for this work that we've all collectively done together, but the heavy lifting really has been with our administrative team. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Again, this was a first reading. It's an overview, but the budget I will bring to you in June will have a lot of detail to it and your beloved pie charts. And so we'll bring that all in June.
Superintendent Magus.
And Member Dirk Eater shared much of what I was going to say. And at the same time, when we think about a week from tonight, actually right about now, we'll be watching the election results come in for the referendum. I think it's really important for people to vote, no matter how they vote, to know that this is a very, very important time for us as a school district. And if the referendum passes, because it will offset some of the technology needs that we need, the budget reduction that we'll need will be lessened by, probably at least $1 million, if not a little more. So we want to really think about what that means to us. When we look, I was talking to several people out in the community, and they were talking about the reductions that they're seeing in neighboring school districts and how they're losing many, many teachers. We purposely built in a safety net, or basically an ability for us to step down from the ESSER spending as opposed to go off the ESSER cliff, as people might say. So it's important for us to really think about that as people go to the ballot box, also knowing that this does have tax impact, but we are looking forward to having those results in 1 week's time. And thank you, Executive Director Zunich. Sorry, I'm falling asleep. I was like, who are you
Okay,
again?
thank
No.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, then, thank you.
No, it was
So,
riveting. It was
Just
riveting.
just riveting, yes. I do have a question. I will be bringing a question to the board about using the assigned fund balance. So do you want me to do that in June when I present the budget? I mean, or even in May, so on the HR Business Services meeting for the school board, just to let you know, I mean, we could just put something in writing, just saying that our intent is to use our assigned fund balance. Does that work for everybody? I won't have an exact dollar amount yet, but.
I think if you put it on the HR Business Committee, but if you can share background information, I mean, we would get that in the board book, of course, but if there's anything additional, yeah.
Sure. We'll put something together.
And then that would be on either the consent agenda or on a regular agenda for our May 21st, if you discuss it next week at HR Business?
Yes.
I think I like that idea only because I think it shows our community that we're being, transparent and bold. Like, we're not going to hide this until, the June when we're adopting it. We've known about it, and, I have known in my research and my education that I'm going to support that, because I've looked at this for the last few months anyway, and so it wouldn't be a bad idea if you can do that at your committee, and then that's just the process we use in other things.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you. And thank you, Executive Director Zunich, for everything you do. Appreciate it.
And we don't formally adjourn, but we have no other presentations, right, Assistant Superintendent? You don't have any other surprise?
No surprise. This
What was the?
audible.
A maneuver?
Have to call it an audible. An audible football language.
But in all, and you can, in all sincerity, though, I really appreciate Assistant Superintendent Bonds, your desire and your energy to bring forward really important presentations, and that the staff really want to come and share, the great things. So I appreciate it, even though it's long, it's not long.